he liked it. So now I'm going to be testing, make sure that everything is going. YouTube has been really, really tricky.
In what sense?
Well, I, YouTube, whenever I reset that, I need to do it without doing a live stream. So that's the only bad part about it. I, YouTube keeps becoming an issue with me. All right, it looks like it did fire up. Hold up, let me see. Let's double check. Yes, we got it going. So YouTube's okay. So YouTube's up and ready to go. It sounds good. D Live is up and going. It sounds good. Go back into the room with you. Well, actually, I am in the room with you. So that can go down. Um, Gotta check Tech Talk on X, find out if it's going.
Hmm.
It says it's running, but it's still, you know, okay. So it is going. It's just acting really weird.
He's acting really weird, a technical term now.
Yes, it is. It's a new technical term, but I can't tell you what
Yeah,
that.
what's acting really weird?
It's oh, okay. I see what it is. Okay, so it is. I had to manually fast forward to where it would be live. The bastards. Well, he's making it harder on the content creator. That's
Uh,
what they do. They're like, you lazy bastards. All you do is make videos. The least you can do is freaking do something really nice and simple. Okay, so X, D Live, Twitch, Kick, and YouTube are all up and running. We are we are good to go. So um, I think now is the perfect time for us to mention the fact that Mark Edworthy is in the room. Yay, Mark Edworthy!
uh,
And
yeah,
I'm gonna switch it back now to turn off the background so that your face can be on there. That
I
was well. It's better than this one.
okay. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and just let you sit there and relax and don't worry about it. We got this taken care of. So
At least I've got no blue things coming out of my head or a monkey sitting on my shoulder.
now, just to put the word out there on Tech Talk too, I want to tell everybody again there is a contest going on right now. Now, with that picture that we have of Mark Edworthy, we are trying to come up with the perfect name to put on it. So hold up, I'll be right back. Got something happening.
That's weird. That.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry about that. You there?
Mm. Yep.
Okay, it looks like your picture froze up. We had a slight little altercation I had to take care of.
Okay.
It got a little crazy there for a second in the other room, so I needed to step away for a second. All right, let me see here. I got distracted. All right. Now here in a second, we can go ahead and get on with the show if you want to, because
Yeah. Definitely
honestly,
like Tans.
we're not getting any kind of response from anybody, so we can go ahead and do it. I'm going through. All I'm doing is going through and deleting videos that after they've uploaded. We've got uh,
Okay.
we've got content all the way up to December the 15th to for Rumble now, and then like all my gaming is caught up to like October, right around October.
Yeah, I noticed you in my YouTube notifications. I'm getting tons of notifications from you.
Well, I have those up until on YouTube. I have them all, everything scheduled all the way up until I think July, maybe August.
Okay.
So those are separate from what I'm talking about. So 54. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, here we go. So yeah, we've got it all straightened out. I can do my imaginary countdown and stuff, and we can get into the show. This is actually going to be a pretty good show. I really do believe that, to be honest with you.
Okay. You only really put in very little information about what you want to talk about.
Well, first of all, we're going to start talking about 5G, and
Okay.
then it's going to spiral down into more.
So the entire conspiracy theories about 5G making you grow two heads and making you styro.
We're going to have a straight up technical conversation about
Okay.
5G.
So
We don't have. This is tech talk, remember? This is tech talk. We don't do that here. Well, not we don't do that here when Mr. Robot's not here. Now,
I was just thinking that actually.
when Mr. Robot's here, freaking, of course, we're gonna have to talk about Atlantis. Uh,
Yeah.
so after that, I think it'd be good to start talking about virtual spaces,
Virtual spaces. What do you mean by that?
and then meta platforms
Okay.
after that.
Okay. Yeah. Virtual spaces. You're gonna have to explain a bit
Okay,
about
it
what you
has
mean.
virtual spaces. Well, let me. We can get into it.
Leave it to the show. But yeah,
Yeah.
you just have
Then,
to expand on that.
that'll lead us into meta, because it'll all make sense about meta once we get into meta
Okay.
after we talk about virtual spaces and stuff. And um, there's a lot of good stuff that we could talk about. Like there's smart cities. That's another thing. Have you ever heard of smart cities?
Indeed, more than well aware of um, the new world orders. 15 minutes STs.
No, this is the real.
Well, it's all the same. It's all related to the same thing.
Yeah. But okay, so you're just making it to where I need another cigarette, dude. Like, okay, let me see here. Everything seems to be up and running. I did an audio check, so now I will. I'm gonna have to break away too after a little while to do something real quick. So
Yeah,
after,
so you're going to take a small break in between.
yeah.
Mm.
So after we're done there, or after we're done here, we're gonna have to do that. So let me do my invisible countdown, and then I'll start the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tech Talk. I'm Roger Hanson here with Mark Edworthy. We're here to start another episode, and today is going to be a good topic. The first episode for this season was about Alphabet Inc. and the things involved with them. And we also got into AI there, but we did another episode last week concerning AI. And I figured this week we could go even further. Now, today, what I wanted to start out talking about is 5G. Maybe after we're done with 5G, we could talk a little bit about uh, virtual worlds. Basically, is what I call them. But they're actually virtual. Well, 5G is the first thing, and then we can get into virtual worlds. Basically, is what they are. And then start talking more about smart cities and discuss what smart cities are and the applications that go into smart cities with AI concerning smart cities. Now, I don't want to get too caught up in the AI this week, but I do want to bring them up. And after that, I want to start talking about Meta, which is the company that Facebook is. It well, for me, I have a hard time understanding which came first, Meta or Facebook. Mark,
To be clear, you mean Meta Platforms Inc.
yeah, Meta Platforms Inc. You're right. So, um, and it's actually virtual spaces is what what they're referred to as, not virtual worlds, but virtual spaces. Um, that's those are the things I wanted to get into first before we start talking about Meta Inc. Or Meta Platforms. Is that what you said?
Yeah, Meta Platforms Inc.
Yeah, Meta Platforms Inc. So um, before we get started, what's your first take on 5G, Mr. Edworthy?
It sounds it's just another cellular telecommunications technology.
Okay, now
In effect,
for me personally, I just think it's the next step when it comes to wireless communication standards. You know what I'm saying?
well, cellular rather than wireless, because wireless encompasses a lot of different technologies, including Bluetooth and Wi-Fi.
Well, I mean, it does define how devices like phones and
Yeah,
sensors
yeah. So cellular,
and
using a
machines
cell.
communicate.
Yeah.
The thing that gets me though is a lot of people don't realize this is over radio waves. You know what I mean? And that's one thing that I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding. Like this 5G is actually being done. Like these machines are communicating over radio waves. So it's not like getting on the internet on the computer and doing it that way. You're actually communicating over radio waves rather than.
All wireless connections are radio waves in one frequency or another. To say that it's not like connecting to the internet, it is connecting to the internet rather than using Ethernet cables. You're using a wireless a cell connection.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not using radio waves over the internet. You know what I mean? When it comes to like land connections and things of that nature. So
Mm, like, I'm not sure what you mean by that.
when you have, well, we call it hard connect when you're connect. You know what I mean? When you're connected directly into something like a freaking coax.
So in the US case, cable being a very popular technology.
Yeah, actually, it really is. It actually is a pretty popular one. Now, I use wireless, but there are a lot of people who have the cable already in their house, so they go ahead and they get the internet directly through the fiber optics.
Yeah,
So,
so we
so
have fiber optics and then Ethernet inside the building.
right now, basically, each generation, one G through 5G, um, has just basically improved upon the last one in terms of like speed, um, the delay before data starts transferring, which a lot of people know as latency.
When it comes to data, that's true, but when it comes to voice analog connections, not so true. Um, with 5G, there are what is it? Voice over not voice over IP, voice over LTE, which is a collection of proprietary frameworks. So in that case, for a mobile phone provide or manufacturer to allow their phones to be able to connect over voice over LTE, they have to buy a license then from another company. But quite a few phones still use 2G for SMS and voice over or analog voice calls.
Now,
Um,
latency though, um, that would also pertain to what you're talking about, like the actual latency between two people talking with one another, wouldn't it?
Not so much. 2G technology has been around for decades now, and since the 80s, possibly. And there isn't very much latency. I mean, in times have you called somebody on the mobile, and have
Well,
you noticed that a
well, for
gap?
me, you remember whenever I was trying to do a collaboration between Austin Summers and Within the Vacuum, and they were going to play music together. Like with me and you talking right now, we don't hear the latency, but like with
Yeah, yeah, but we aren't talking about over analog voice. We're talking over IP. We're using a digital form.
but with me and you, we don't have latency. But what I was getting at was when I did them trying to actually play two different music or guitars over the internet together at the same time, they couldn't do it because the latency was screwing up um, their audio. They couldn't synchronize together. They could really hear the latency whenever they were trying to coordinate two guitars to play at the same time together.
In that case, technically, they would have been better off just using a analog voice call.
Now that would be interesting.
Yeah,
Do-
and then you could somehow transmit it to the internet afterwards.
somehow. So you have no
Well,
idea how that would.
I can think of a few ways of doing that, but just sticking a phone in front of a microphone is the most obvious way. Or
Doing
if
it.
it's got an audio, if it's got a TLS jack on it, sorry, TSS jack on it, and then stick it straight into a phone connection.
All right. So you can actually do that just straight through the computer with a USB cord, right?
Yeah, yeah, because it is gone from analog to data. Arguably, you may find a bit more latency compared to using a straight phone connection.
Okay.
Maybe.
Now, um, also, they say that whenever they went from 1G to 1.5 or to 5G, that it also helped improve the capacity, how many devices could be connected. Do you see that as being something that's true?
Uh, the argument is that the more also this is also true for Wi-Fi. The more connections a single hot
Well, I don't. Hold on a minute. I think you're
in
frozen.
theory, okay.
I,
In theory, the slower the connections to all of them become.
okay.
That makes sense.
So it all slows down. To be honest,
Yeah.
I've never seen any kind of improvement when it comes to how like how many people can actually be connected to the same network on a phone. To be honest with you, like I've seen that there are improvements when it comes to cellular phones and stuff of that nature, but when it comes to how many devices can be connected, I mean that to me is more of a company thing. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
allow,
I've
but
seen some theoretical white papers on this, but yeah, I've not really done the research into the actual physical mechanisms.
now another thing that I also found out was that 4G focused on like fast mobile internet, while 5G was designed for versatility. Not just people streaming videos, but also like machines um, talking to machines kind of thing. You know what I mean?
I'm not so sure. I don't buy into the so-called Internet of Things theory on this. That's what you're talking about. Your coffee machine being able to talk to your light switch, that sort of thing.
Now, the Internet of Things is actually something that we're going to get into whenever I was talking about smart cities. There's actually plans that people are trying to make out. They've brought it in. They've coined it the Internet of Things, and that's kind of what Mark's talking about for anybody who's on here and doesn't understand that. Like I know the way we were having our conversation, you believe that a lot of that is actually conspiracy theory, and to a large extent, it really is. But the truth of the matter is
I'm not sure. I'm not
they
sure
are.
if conspiracy theory is a good word for it, but there's a it's one of these terms that have been really overly used, such as artificial intelligence, such as cloud. It's one of these marketing terms that are just abused
Well,
quite often.
with 5G, okay, where they're talking about how it's designed for versatility, they're making claims that it's not just people streaming videos and stuff of that nature, but it's about machines talking to machines. You know what I mean? And things of that nature. So 5G networks are supposed to operate on different types of radio frequencies, um, each with
F- First of
trade-offs.
all, I don't. like the idea of suggesting that one form of network connection is specifically used for this and not for network, because I can use I don't know, a 3G. At the moment I can't, or a Ethernet cable to for multiple purposes.
Now, what they're saying though is 5G operates off different type of radio frequencies. Now, they're
All
low band.
2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G all uses their own set amount of frequencies. Just because you say 5G, that doesn't mean one frequency. There's an entire range. When you say 4G, there isn't a single frequency. There's an entire range. When you say 3G, so forth.
No, they're talking about that 5G works off low band, mid band, and high band.
Okay, that's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but yeah, which is related to speed and distance.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it's supposed to be extremely fast, but it only works over short distance and can't penetrate walls well. That is
Uh,
the low band.
yeah.
No, actually, the low band actually penetrates buildings pretty good.
If I
And it
remember rightly, low band, I can't remember the frequencies off the top of my head, but you're looking at something like 500 meters
Mhm.
radius from the access point.
No, it's supposed to have a sub of 1 gigahertz or 1 gigahertz, and it's got for low band, and it has low range, and it penetrates buildings well. Um, and the speed is only slightly better than 4G, is what I
I'm
was.
not sure about where. I suppose it all depends on the material of the building, brick
No,
compared.
okay. So now the mid band is between 1 and 6 gigahertz, and it's balanced between speed and coverage, and it's used in most urban 5G deployments. Like now, urban is in the city, right?
Yeah,
Okay, and because I
yeah,
always
of
get that
course.
mixed.
Yeah,
I,
when
rural one.
in effect, both in the US and in the UK, you will only find good 5G coverage in larger cities anyway.
Mhm.
If you're
And
based in where I am, very little chance.
that would be because they have a balance between speed and coverage, so you'd have that balance going on in the mid range.
Yeah, well, it's all about infrastructure and logistics, really.
Now the high band is the one that is supposed to be works extremely fast, but only works over short distances, and that can't penetrate walls. And that has an wave of 24 plus gigahertz.
Yeah.
It requires dense network and small antennas. Not and it's not
Mm.
practical everywhere. So
That's arguable because even in the I can only speak for the UK here, but even in small towns, you've got lamps, lights, public lamps everywhere. You,
well, slow down. You're getting excited. You've frozen up your stream.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're gonna have to
Um,
repeat yourself. You've done gotten excited and froze your stream up.
but yeah,
You were
I'm
talking
not
about
sure.
public lamps.
Yeah, yeah. Presumably let's say in a small town, if you've got street lights everywhere, then you can, in theory, just slap a access point to those things.
Now, after that, I wanted to talk about massive MIMO or multiple antennas per tower device.
Yeah,
Um, that's that's used to increase signal capacity. So That would actually be kind of what you're getting into right there when it comes to the lamps. That would be like street lights here in
Yeah,
the United States, right? Just
yeah,
so everybody knows. Plus, you kind of you got that British accent that really makes me wonder what the hell. Because like a lamp is a lamp, you know what I mean? So
street lights. Yeah.
street light. Well, it's cool that you said it, but I wanted to clear that up.
Yeah.
So now, beamforming. It directs light radio signals in specific directions to improve efficiency. Um, if, what do you think about that beamforming?
It's interesting. Um, I've decided some time ago when I moved into this place where I'm living now, the phone lines are so awkwardly placed. I'm usually on a top floor for story building, and my phone lines are right at the bottom of the thing. But so I decided to actually experiment with 4G networks. So in fact, my router is connecting to a 4G network now. Um, and when I was playing around with getting the optimal sort of coverage, I was thinking about actually having direct line of sight antennas. So between me and the cell tower, which the nearest cell tower is something like about 6-7 miles away from me, maybe a bit further. So I did a lot of research on things like direct antennas and omnidirectional antennas, and I'm using two omnidirectional antennas now. Um, and yeah, so um, in certain cases, direct line of sight antennas can be useful. But again, you have to have as little um, not interference.
Lanes,
You've got to. Uh, Sorry.
lanes.
You've got to have as little obstructions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of that kind of leads right into network slicing, doesn't it? Oh, you froze.
In what's that?
Like
In
like network slicing creates like customized lanes of bandwidth
okay.
for like different purposes. You have here in the United States we have like the emergency services and the police and stuff of that nature, and then we have uh, home use for the internet. So when you have network slicing, it creates customized lanes specifically for emergency services, and then
Okay.
it's separate from like home use. So that's kind of like what that is, isn't it? What you're talking about? You're
Uh,
creating your own customized lane of bandwidth.
yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously, in both the UK and the US and most of the world, there are only specific or the bandwidth regulated. So
Okay, so I've got. Oh,
uh,
you're freezing. Yeah,
frequency
yeah, you froze
without
up.
buying a license. Or,
So you'd have to buy a license for it if you got busted and they found out that you.
if you use an unregulated, not an uncommon frequency, then yes, you probably would have to.
Okay.
Again, laws change on country by country, but yeah.
All right. So now, from what I'm finding out, the theoretic floor for 5G latency is about 1 millisecond. Um, and it says that 1 millisecond is useful, where milliseconds matter in stuff like robotics, remote controls, or gaming. Okay. Now, in practice, real world latency is usually higher, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. You never base all data on theoretical speeds.
No, they're saying like in the real world, it's actually higher than what the real world latency or what the theoretical floor is. And
Again, again, this depends on localization, infrastructure, logistics. Again, in certain countries, I mean, I think in Saudi Arabia, they've got some of the best 5G connections in the world, and they've got well, because it's Saudi Arabia with the amount of money and these, they've got they can build really good infrastructure compared to the US and the UK, or North America and the UK.
now my whole point though is what's your thought on this 1 millisecond thing? Do you honestly believe that any network has freaking latency of around 1 millisecond? For me personally, I find it kind of doubtful. I really don't think that any.
Again, this goes back to logistics and infrastructure. Um, if you've got the ideal sort of infrastructure, then potentially yes, but it-
Well, I mean, if you're standing next to the tower and there's no freaking obstructions in the way, maybe you could get 1 millisecond. That's my take on it. You know what I mean? I don't see even a block away from any tower, not or and you're still getting 1 millisecond of latency.
and that's just solely from the connection from your device to the access point.
Right.
That doesn't mean any other sort of interference such as DNS and the other end.
Well, we're talking 1 millisecond. you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, but that's solely between your device and the
Right.
cell tower
Right.
or the access point.
That's pretty fast. I mean, you got to
Mm.
admit 1 millisecond is pretty fast. So, I mean, from my point of view, I just don't see that happen. I've never had the opportunity to actually, uh, be able to measure latency that quick. So, I mean, but that's just my personal opinion on it. It's crazy. Um, now, I've also heard that claims being made that 5G can support more simultaneous connections and higher data throughput. Um, they say that's key for like dense environments like urban centers. Um, they they also say that device coordinates enables better machine to machine communication for things like traffic lights, factory robots, and agricultural sensors. Um,
I'm not so sure about this because when you come down to these sort of use cases,
Hold on a minute, you're fading in and out. Hold on a minute. I hope you can hear me.
yeah,
Okay, your voice kind of went out there for a second. Now you said in these kind of use cases, what? Uh,
yeah, yeah, going to be a couple potentially kilobytes worth of data going per device.
so
I mean,
you do agree with it? 5G devices enable better machine-to-machine communication. Then
no, no. If you're only transmitting a couple of kilobytes at a time, then speed isn't really a major issue.
okay. So what about traffic lights?
Again, you only what is the traffic light? What data is it sending or receiving? When to switch on? When to switch off?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And
On the end of the bar,
I know here in some states here in Kentucky, they're doing lights to where if somebody pulls up to it, like here in Kentucky, they do it, but a sensor will show that the vehicle's there, and if there's nobody else, it'll turn green. So we do have that going on.
service center, one thing, it just needs a light sensor on the device
Well, they want to be cool. They want to
or detection sensor, whatever. So the sensor is a localized sensor.
now, like with me, it's like I don't think that you're suddenly going to download movies in a blink unless you're like standing under a high band tower and there's nothing in the way either. You know what I mean? Like if you turn around and you go and you freaking try to download a movie or something like that, I don't see that as uh, happening either. So that kind of for me when it comes to the 1 millisecond thing is just kind of a load. It's a load. I'm
Yeah,
trying.
yeah, it's another P marketing trick, sleight
Mhm.
of hand trick.
Okay, now before we get into it, I want to also mention that what we're talking about here has absolutely nothing to do with smart cities. It doesn't cause uh, AI or smart cities. So those are separate technologies from 5G. 5G just makes like a better data or makes data move faster. You know what I mean, and more efficient. So later on, when we get into talking about smart cities and things of that nature, don't mistaken that for what we're talking about. It looks like Mark Edworthy has had a problem, so I'm going to have to put a background up in his place until he gets back. So, um, yeah, that is one thing that I do want to mention. It doesn't cause AI or smart cities. You know what I mean? These are separate technologies. 5G just makes data move faster and more efficiently, um, and it helps systems function better, basically. Um, Now, the practical uses for 5G, that's the one thing that I do want to get into next. And let me see how much time we got on here. Your Mark Edworthy is back, but I'm gonna wait until he unmutes before I switch the background around. Um, Also, I want to see if we got anybody.
That doesn't matter. Yeah, for
There you
some
go.
reason, I'm just frozen. Yeah,
Well, there was
okay.
different cutoffs and stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? Where you were kind of going in and out. So it as ironic as it is, it could be because of your network. Just putting it out there because
It could be a number of different things.
it sounds like a
Actually, actually, for, no, for some reason, Firefox totally froze for a second. So could be
Mhm.
something weird going on with my workstation.
Now let me see exactly how far we've gotten into 44 minutes of the stream. Now, one thing that I do want to do is I want to take and get into more of the practical uses for 5G, since we've covered the basics and everything. And I did point out to everybody that this isn't what we were talking about earlier with the smart cities and things of that nature. Like, this is specifically for 5G, you know what I mean? And,
Hmm.
and now
Okay.
I want to start talking about the practical uses when it comes to 5G networks. And after, if you want, we can take a quick break, come back and I want to talk about 5G networks and how they coordinate uh, fleets of robots and drones or machinery and stuff like that, and also vehicles, how they can communicate with each other and things of that nature. Um, and they can do it in real time, stuff of that like that. So, sound like a plan,
Okay. Okay.
and kind of go over some more of that stuff. Um, now, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get some coffee. I'm gonna smoke a cigarette, and I'll be right back. What do you want to hear another cool song from Mr. Robot, dude?
If we got to.
Now, he actually put another song today, and I thought that it would be a good song to do for him because he has been so supportive on us. Only he just never shows up on time or at all sometimes whenever it comes to like being on the show. So
Hmm.
that's the reason why I've been putting his music up on here because he really does try to make it an effort to give us some support and everything, and that's the reason why I do it. So whenever he's actually awake in the daytime, that's whenever I actually get a chance to, um, or I actually do go in and do something now. I'm trying my best to figure out where the heck I put his song. So, um, but most likely I'm gonna have to cancel out on the new one, and I'll put one on, and we can come back later. It helps me waste time so that we can go a little farther.
Okay.
So, what I'll do is I will put on Celestial Blueprints. No, actually, I'm gonna put it on the Fizzler from Mr. Robot. So the best thing for you, Mark, is to mute out. Maybe turn the volume down because I know Mr.
Oh,
Robot's music is going to drive
yeah,
you.
would drive me mad.
Yes.
Um,
So
indeed.
I will be right back out, and we'll start this up whenever I get back. So.
Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Trust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Trust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around or rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around or rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. And if Mr. Robot rolled or rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around or rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Here is an exercise demonstrating the union of in at the end of words. Dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and striving. Dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and driving. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. 50,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around or rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around or rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. town hall. I love to hear the horses' hard iron hooves go hammer, 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 hammer on the easy highway. I hit my horse hard, I'm going around to hunt up hard. Theophilus Thisler, Theophilus Thisler, Theophilus Thisler, Theophilus Thisler, Theophilus Thisler, Theophilus Thisler, the thistle sifter, is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thisler, thistle sifter. Theophilus Thisler, the thistle sifter, is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Trust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thisler, the thistle sifter, is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Trust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around or rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around or rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. And if Mr. Robot rolled or rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around or rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Here is an exercise demonstrating the union of in at the end of words. Dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and striving. Dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and driving. Theophilus Thisler, the thistle sifter, is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thisler, the thistle sifter, is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around or rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around or rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot Mr. Robot rolled around or rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around or rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. And if Mr. Robot rolled and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Here is an exercise demonstrating the union of in at the end of words. Dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and striving. Dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and driving. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Hardly had his Hail Highness heard the easy hedgehog when he hit the humming bee by the hunter who had horrible beetles in the human hall. I love to hear the horse's hard iron hooves go hammer, 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 hammer on the easy highway. I hit my horse hard. I'm going around to hunt up hogs. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter, is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, thistle sifter, thistle sifter.
All right, I'm back. Okay, let's get this off the thing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Mark? Sounds like
Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, now you can.
okay. It took me a second.
Yeah, I muted this tab. I was watching something in relation to yesterday's UK Supreme Court ruling.
Okay, now hold on a second. I have somebody yelling for me real quick, okay? I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, never mind. I think it got taken care of. Okay, so you can't hear me though, right? Everything's working fine.
Yeah, you okay?
Okay, so I went and I checked out everything on the chats. I believe freaking we have a dude on there that's going to have to be blocked. I'm gonna go ahead and delete
Okay.
his comment, but we that was on Kick, but we have a guy on there that also said that he his name's uh, Blinks Bunkley. He said he had a Discord. He's on. He wants to know my Discord, which he always does. It seems like he's spam, but he says he has a tech problem. Um, and I shared the information on there and let him know that he can come on if he has any questions and stuff. Anybody who's on the stream that has any tech problems that they want to ask and come on to the thing. The links are posted. You're more than welcome to join if you want to.
Any tech issue?
Yeah. Um,
Okay.
just if they want to bring it up, you know what I mean. Especially when it comes to 5G, because I know a lot of people have issues with 5G and really do have issues with their phones. I personally don't use phones. I don't see a real purpose when it comes to the internet for it. I know everybody loves it, but when you're sitting on a computer system and you're having to deal with other people on a phone, you see a lot of headaches involved in that. But it
I don't
seems
know. If you're out remote and you need to use a portable workstation.
I'm talking about using it for serious stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Not,
yeah,
not
yeah. I collect all my emails and various notifications through my phone. So if I'm out away from my workstation, I've got something there to keep me informed.
well, I mean, emails or emails. I'm talking about like actually doing projects and stuff of that nature. Like most of my time on computers deals with like editing videos and freaking making sure that they're scheduled on YouTube and being able to upload from a computer to YouTube and put schedules on it and things of
Okay,
that nature.
maybe
Hold on, you're having some issues.
videos might not be practical, but other administration sort of tasks.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get into the administration stuff, because I know you like doing that. Now, it says when it talks about like practical uses, what I was wanting to talk about. It claims that private 5G networks can like coordinate fleets of robots, drones, and machinery. Okay, and that it can also help vehicles communicate with each other and infrastructure in real time. Uh, it's supposed to be helpful for automation and traffic management. Uh,
I'm not sure if you can argue that 5G itself, eight and
well, I mean, when you were mentioning the antennas, those antennas that are on the
mm,
stoplights or the 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 stoplights that you have as stoplights,
mm,
traffic, you know
yeah,
that
traffic lights, yeah.
traffic lights that they're becoming more and more prevalent everywhere. I mean, even small towns now have them. You know, so hold on. You,
Versus any other cellular technology is an improvement because again you're talking about very small amounts of data.
mhm. Now that when it comes to high bandwidth too, that would be perfect in my opinion for tasks like traffic lights.
Would it?
Yeah, because it's
Would it?
just well, it wouldn't actually too because it would be a short distance. Now that would be an issue right there. I don't know because because high bandwidth is actually supposed to be for short distances, right? I mean,
Mm, when you say high bandwidth, you
high band,
mean
you got
uh,
your high, low band, mid band, and then your high.
you're talking about more data going through the so-called pipe.
Mhm.
Um, again, we are only talking about very small
Yeah, you're
actions.
you're bouncing out now. What did you say right there?
You're talking about very small amount of data.
Right.
So why do you need such a why the as a, to give an analogy, why use a 10 millimeter pipe if you're only streaming through a trickle of water?
Well, for low band, it has a longer range. You know what I mean? And it does penetrate buildings and walls and stuff. But the only thing is, I
In
mean,
theory, a low band.
low band is, I mean, it's just slightly better than a 4G uh, band.
Three, whatever you want to call it. There is a danger of also conflating bands with these definitions because I remember back in the early days of 4G, and you still find it now. People claiming they've got 4G connections when they've got HSP connections, which is a high form of 3G.
Yeah. Well, I
So
mean,
yeah,
that's kind of the thing you'd want to know though when it comes to like traffic lights and everything for me. And when they say short range, what exactly are they talking about? What do they consider short range?
well, like I said, in the highest band for 5G, it's on 500 meters, meters. But again, if you're talking about such low data, why do you surely a low band, high radius network would be better,
So
or
you're
wouldn't be better? It would high band in this usage would not give out any real significant sort of improvement.
well, I mean, neither would low band actually if you
Yeah.
stop.
So, oh, yeah. Well, means less transmitters,
Mhm.
less access points, therefore less money needing to be spent on placements and stuff.
No, the whole thing with like vehicles, they're coming out with Teslas and things like that. That's another area, or I guess they feel that um, 5G would be helpful because it would help vehicles communicate with one another as well as with the infrastructure. You know what I mean? So that it could drive, they could self drive themselves without colliding into one another. You know,
In
so
theory, in
yeah.
theory, again, there's an entire argument about regulatory sort of regulations and stuff about this, but in theory,
Well, I mean, go over that. What do you know about those regulations that
you ask me such a broad question.
just you don't have to like get all technical.
Um,
This is tech talk. Now, Tan is the one who likes doing the
Let,
presentations and stuff. We're just having a conversation.
okay, well, I could, regulations can be in form of many different aspects, but as a simplistic viewpoint, if you got a self-driving automobile at the moment, um, the technically in the UK, technically the driver or the person behind the steering wheel is still in control of the vehicle. Um, let's say we go to a concept of complete self-driving automobiles, and there's a crash. Who's to be blamed for the crash? Should a person behind the wheel be blamed? Should the company that produced the vehicle be blamed? Should the people that created the software be blamed?
That's a good question. Actually, that's actually a
The
really good question.
infrastructure providers. Yeah.
And so you didn't have to have legal jargon to bring that up. You know what I mean? That's a
Well,
very
that's the
logical
most
question.
simplistic. Yeah.
That is a really good question. Who's held liable for that accident? You know, I mean, because the driver wasn't driving. You know, I mean, so that makes you wonder what's going to happen if this becomes mainstream and everybody has a self-driving car. What's going to happen to auto insurance and things of that nature too?
Yeah.
You know, so that is.
And let's say some pedestrian gets knocked over and dies.
Oh yeah,
Are you, yeah, you
exactly.
can see the complication there.
Hmm. Now, what about real-time monitoring of like water, energy, and waste systems? Um, do you think that these systems will become more feasible for that, for like monitoring the water and the energy and waste?
We've already got mechanisms in for monitoring both at a um,
No, I mean, do you think using 5G would actually be beneficial when it comes to real-time monitoring? Like whenever you monitor these systems in real time, when it comes
I
to.
can't see on a general principle, I can't see how fast the speeds are going to improve monitoring. And also, if you are, let's say you're in a water, I don't know, purification plant,
Hold on a minute.
equipment for your distressor is mainly wired because you are on site, aren't you?
Yeah, but
All these,
let's also take into consideration water meters, electric meters,
okay,
things of that.
okay. When it comes to domestic sort of situations, we've seen so-called smart meters being used at the moment, and they're
Right.
all using mainly, would imagine now, 4G technology, 4G cell to connect to whatever data center.
No, no, that according to what I'm hearing, they're wanting to upgrade that now to where it would also be better not only for real time but for volatility and stuff. You know what I mean? To where it's.
I'm not sure if the speed of the connection would make that much difference.
I know, like whenever we had that water leak in this last winter time, man, we had the water company at the front door knocking. You know what I mean? They were right there telling us, well, from what we're reading, it looks like you have a water leak somewhere. So, I mean, in that aspect, it's good. But then at the same time, if you're in the middle of the winter time and you freaking most people let their water drip when it's below freezing, you know. So what happens then when you have your water dripping? and all of a sudden you get a knock on the door from the water company. That's one issue that I see with the whole situation. You're constantly going to have the water company bugging the hell out of you because in the wintertime you
Yeah.
have, you know what I mean? Because not everybody has the perfect plumbing. You know what I mean?
Mm.
There are people who have. We're one of them where if it gets too cold, man, we have the water dripping during the wintertime. So that's an issue that I do see happening. You're going to have a lot of that taking place. I guess it gets.
But
Oh, go ahead.
I can't see how the speed on um, cell connections is going to dramatically change the efficiency.
Well, I mean, yeah, that is true. I mean, especially with like 4 and 5G. To be honest, I mean, in a lot of this, it seems to me like it's a lot of overkill when it
Yeah,
comes to it. It's not really.
it's these executives jumping on the marketers jumping on. Oh, this is the biggest, greatest new thing, so let's all jump on it.
Yeah. Let me figure out what the hell I just did.
And also remember that any infrastructure changes will come back as costs back to the customer.
Mhm.
Somebody has to pay for this.
Now, when after that, I also wanted to kind of go over more stable remote monitoring on patients or high resolution videos for telemedicine. Um, I noticed they're mentioning a lot of stuff when it comes to like monitoring patients in um, like high resolution videos for like telemedicine. I'm not really for sure what telemedicine is, but they brought that up too. And
Monitoring people.
yeah,
What? High resolution monitoring. What? Showing. Sorry, I'm a bit confused.
yeah, and see the thing of it is much of this stuff it still works like over wired networks, just regular
Hmm.
wired networks. It to me it seems like it's overkill. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And like for me, I know like denser networks that usually means that there's going to be more towers, and it's going to need more power requirements than you have with like infrastructure. Infrastructure
Hmm.
is expensive. You know what I mean? Um,
Indeed.
Especially when you're talking about wave deployment. That's really expensive, and that's what they're wanting to put in. I don't know if you know much about wave.
Millimeter wave. Again, 500. And did I say 500 meters? Oh, 500 millimeters.
And also remember, just a little while ago, we were talking about 1 millimeter, of latency time. So you're you're talking a lot of expensive infrastructure going into
Hmm.
place. You know, they're talking big projects with this 5G, and
I can't remember the actual numbers. I was just trying to. Yeah, I can't remember the actual numbers I'm thinking of. But yeah, if you're going to have a access point every couple of meters away, in a city the size of, I don't know, New York, that's quite a that's quite a number of different boxes.
yeah, it is. Now, from what I'm getting, it's this whole thing like you were just talking about with monitoring when it comes to hospitals and stuff. Um, the one thing that I get out of it is like that's what they're really going for is more potential for monitoring. It's like they the more connected devices there is, then that means more data. I mean, the more potential they have for monitoring people and stuff of that nature. So that's my take on it.
But if you've got an enclosed place, if let's say you're in a hospital and you've got all these devices, then why not just wire them?
Well, I'm trying not to get into conspiracy.
It's not conspiracy. Well, how is it conspiracy? You've
You
got all these.
know,
You've got all these static devices. You've got this CAT scan that's over there. You've got this I don't know, IV drip that's over there, and it's all static
hmm
virtually. So why not just stick Ethernet cables? Why not
well,
just wire them?
I agree with you. Many applications don't need 5G speeds
Yeah.
or latency. 4G or Wi-Fi still does the job. I mean, it really
Or
does.
wired. Yeah. Hell. We've seen Ethernet connections going from 1 gigabit per second to 2.5, and I think um, recently there's been retail sort of 10 gigabits per second connections in Ethernet.
Right.
So why create another load of infrastructure when you've got physical wires there, which is less prone to issues?
Well, they've been really making it. They've been making it very very important that they state that 5G isn't like a revolution. Okay, it's just like a technical upgrade.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you know what I mean? And they have been pointing that out. They also say that it's supposed to give wireless networks more flexibility and better speed.
So who are they in this? I presume some
Well, of course,
organisation or entity that's claiming to be an expert, but who are they?
you know who they are. They're the commercialized freaking
Okay,
advertisements that are going out.
okay. So marketing people.
I,
So,
I
so, so
I've
so
been
they
trying my best to keep the commercialism out of the stuff that I've been pulling together because I know you get annoyed when you hear it. Okay, so when I say they, that means I'm trying to spare you from the aggravation of hearing commercialism. It is just commercialism.
Well, have you actually looked at the white papers? Have you actually looked at the data points made by engineers? Have you looked at the white papers that have been written by engineers?
Well, I don't ever want to read a white paper from any of these people, okay, whatsoever. This is stuff that you enjoy, but I would never want to read the white papers on this stuff. I guarantee you, the pages on this stuff is insane. I
Mm,
know they are. So,
can be, can be.
how many pages do you think, on average, companies and corporations like this have? How many pages?
In relation to what one individual technology.
Just like this right here, what we've been talking about, just this stuff here,
I don't know. I don't know. Um,
a
what
thousand.
was it? I was reading last year. I was reading an interesting white paper on raindrop theory. Um, that is the principle of in certain conditions, and if you've got a bit of a tropical rainstorm, that can affect 4G and 5G connections because of reflection of and interference in radio waves, and that came out, and one document came out to something like 500 pages.
That's actually interesting because, like, one thing that I do know, um, they were talking about freaking like environments. 5G is supposed to be helpful, like environments where devices need to connect at once, like right then and there. So I know they were talking about that, and then they were
Mhm.
talking about lower delay in some of the stuff. So that was something that really stuck out to me. And the impact of 5G, uh, according to some of it, says that it depends less on technology itself and more on how industries and governments choose to use it. Um,
Yeah, how it's implemented. I mean, as an example, in my 4G situation there, I've got one 4G router, but it's connected to multiple devices.
yeah,
So I'm using one 4G access point, but one point, but that doesn't mean I'm restricted to one device.
right. So now, since we're done with 5G, do you want to talk about freaking smart cities?
Carry on.
Just
Carry
figured
on.
I would ask, but see if you wanted to do it. This could be the best way to end this area, and then we can go on to the other stuff later on. But
Okay.
I'll just read my note to you, and we can cover some of this stuff. Like we can go in now. A smart city uses digital technologies, data analytics, and automation to improve the quality of life for residents, streamline operations, and enhance sustainability. The goal is to make cities more efficient, safer, and responsible by using connected systems. Think traffic lights that adjust in real time, public services that respond to real needs, and utilities that manage resources better. AI is like the brain of a smart city. It processes data, recognizes patterns, and makes decisions or assists in decision making. While IoT, which is Internet of Things, connects devices like sensors, cameras, and vehicles, AI interprets all that data and drives intelligent action. So that is what I got there. Now, with the key applications of AI in smart cities, you have the first one is traffic and transportation, where AI will analyze traffic flow and adjust signals to reduce congestions. Then you have apps like Google Map, which use AI to suggest optimal travel routes. Then you have self driving shuttles and buses guided by AI. Then AI helps drivers find available spots using real time data. After that, we go to public safety, and that analyzes video feeds that detects crimes, accidents, or suspicious behavior. Okay, AI helps dispatch police, fire, or ambulance units faster based on location and severity. After that,
Yeah.
you have AI models. AI models forecast floods, earthquakes, or pandemics with better accuracy. AI
Okay.
monitors pollution levels and recommends traffic changes or health advisories. Okay, then smart bins tell the city when they're full. AI optimizes pickup routes. AI balances energy grids, integrates solar and wind, and cuts waste. So now we go into the fourth one, which is utilities and infrastructure. AI tracks pressure and flow to identify leaks in real time. AI distributes electricity more efficiently and reacts to demand spikes. AI predicts maintenance needs for bridges, roads, and pipelines before failure. Okay, now we get into citizen services. AI chatbots help residents access services like permits, billings, or complaints. Voice assistants in public areas provide directions, updates, or accessibility support. AI helps streamline administration, budgeting, and policy decisions. Now, in Singapore, they use AI for traffic monitoring, energy management, and facial recognition in law enforcement. Barcelona tried smart lighting, waste systems, and water saving public parks. In Dubai, they have an AI powered police services, autonomous public transport, and predictive healthcare. Now in Toronto, they have something called the Sidewalk Labs, and they tried to build a data-rich smart neighborhood, though it raised major privacy concerns. And this is where I know you're going to have some sass in your face. Okay, now with that comes cameras, sensors, and tracking systems raise serious questions about surveillance and consent. Okay, now who owns the data? That's the question for me. And how is it being used? Is it being sold or misused? That's something that I personally want to know about. You know what I mean? When it comes to that stuff, if it's, I really don't want any of that, to be honest with you.
I would argue that it's already being misused just by the fact that we're using it in these tracking everyone where they're going all the time, predictive policing, all this kind of stuff is already like we didn't ask
Okay.
for that. You know what I mean?
Okay, couple of points. I agree with you, Mr. Wells, on some of this. I mean, the UK is the most surveilled country in the world, I believe, with more cameras
Even
per
before
square mile.
Yeah.
But also, you're talking about predictive policing. Do you want to be
Yeah.
accused of a crime that you've yet to be that has yet to be done? Reminds me of that. What was that film about?
The
minority.
SIS. No, the SIS.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
I actually made a freaking stream about the SIS and nobody watched it. You know, that's what
Also,
blows my mind.
also directing organisations, so police force or I don't know, rubbish collection, to do these jobs on time. Let's talk about what's been happening, especially in the UK, in relation to police forces not bothering to investigate crimes, or what's been happening in Birmingham in relation to the rubbish collection strikes. So yeah, just because you got all this technology that could, in theory, direct services to these issues, doesn't mean that these services are going to be directed to these issues in an efficient time.
Mark, you were around in Britain before they had all these cameras everywhere and stuff. Would you say it's safer now since they've implemented mass surveillance and AI policing and what?
In the last couple of years, I would say no, because again, we've got this entire issue about the police not doing the job, and police more being directed to check people's Facebook feeds for one fault, rather than actually dealing with actual physical crime.
Well, you know, I mean, you also have to take into consideration too, England, especially with England. Now they have always had. At one point, they had this standard where police officers didn't walk around with weapons. You know what I mean? If they needed a weapon,
We,
there was
we
usually
still
a
don't.
well.
Yeah, except for maybe the junction and the pepper spray.
Well, you guys have super cops now. You know what I mean? So, and you know what they are. These super cops are freaking
Do
just
they wear
based.
capes?
Well, come on, I know it's funny. It is funny, but
I
the
know what you
reason
mean
why
by
they're named that is
that.
because they're allowed to wear guns. You know what I mean? Basically.
Yeah, but that's in very, very rare occasions. Sure, if you're outside of Westminster in London, yeah, more than likely. But if you are in my neck of the woods, walking around doing your general grocery shopping, you're not going to see a. Yeah, you'd be very lucky to see a copper, even though, funnily enough, I've got a police station right next door to a supermarket, and it's very,
But that's
very,
because
very rarely seen.
physical presence anymore. They're watching you on camera,
Right.
and you
But
only see them when they
But,
rock up
but
at your door.
also, yeah, you are going to see a officer with a gun unless it's in very special sort of circumstances. You aren't going to see anybody from special SO19 in during daily use, daily sort of occurrence.
What would you say is the point of all this mass surveillance and everything if it's not making everyone safer?
It's
To arguably to control a population to
that's
um,
kind of been the whole trademark of England's for quite a while before even computers were set
I would
in.
say the UK rather than England per se, because Scotland is just as bad, if not worse, in some areas.
I mean, you guys do have that freaking that surveillance freaking what would you call it? It's that little freaking area right there in the square. I forgot which town it was, but you could actually go in there, look down at a mirror, and you could see different areas of that town because they have a mirror system set up to where you can literally see different areas through a mirror system. I
Okay.
forgot, but that it's like especially England, dude. I mean, specifically England, they have always been into wanting to monitor everything. You know what I mean? Like, how many years now has it been since you guys had cameras set up? It's been since at least the 80s, hasn't it? 80s or 90s?
Yeah, yeah. It's just crept up on. Again, I'm not sure if you can just blame England per se, because again, the Scots, especially in the last couple of years, in relation to the Scottish National Party, has taken some really draconian stances.
Yeah, but you guys are the ringleaders. I,
Well, let's call it the United Kingdom rather than just
we'll
blaming
call it the
England.
United Kingdom. Now, uh, it is a good question though that Mr. Robot asked. Where do you see this as being something that protects? How do you see it as being able to protect people more?
Well, historically, right, like kingdoms have always had an interest in knowing whether the population wants to revolt against the power structure. So the more insight they can have into that possibility and the more ways they can quell rebellion, the better it is for maintaining their status quo. So I would argue it is a necessary part of maintaining an empire to be able to monitor and control your population. Like in the old days, they'd have enforcers in their vassal states and stuff like that. They'd have like kings in each region that would like control the area for them. And this is just the modern, cheaper iteration of it. That's probably a
I
lot
would
more.
also remind you of what happened in the Soviet Union, political commissars everywhere in China. To be frank, I will just remind you of the famous Benjamin Franklin quote: "Those who give up essential liberties for a modicum of safety deserve neither liberty, essential liberties, or safety."
You see, he uses American politicians from the past when it benefits him. Okay, have you noticed that? Like
It's a good quote.
everything,
It's a good quote.
everything in England is like the best, and America is horrible. Only when it serves his purpose. He's very, very.
Well, if I could find a good British quote that's related to that, I would use that.
I'm
Can
sure.
we read out what the commentator is saying in the chat?
Which
Huh?
chap?
Can you see in the Rumble chat? There's a UL
No,
Adamus. He's saying that technology is not being used for the community and for the growth of the people, but for the advancement in power of a certain group of people. The police are just another group that has been given power to manipulate via the illusion of law that only serves that same group that wants to use technology for their own and not for everyone. But also throughout history, them trying to maintain and double down on that empire mentality is the reason why their empires fell. That's a good point.
that's in YouTube. Dude.
As
As
YouTube.
far as
Yeah,
as far as the UK police is concerned, there's always been this concept of policing by consent,
right.
and in
And has
effect,
that ever actually happened though?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, also let's remember what we're talking about here. Okay, um, this isn't people because we make mistakes. But what and we've proven that we make mistakes. Okay, but you need to also put it into this perspective. AI, artificial intelligence, is supposed to help dispatch police, fire, and ambulance units faster based on location and severity. And then it goes on to say that freaking AI is supposed to forecast floods, earthquakes, or pandemics with better accuracy than what we can. Okay,
What
so
I saw some politicians talking amongst themselves recently in some leaked documents, and they were basically saying in the future, people are going to make policy decisions based on AI's output, right? So they said the way to get ahead of that is to pollute what's on the internet with misinformation so they can trick the AI into saying what they want. So in the future, they're going to basically be able to program the AI through uh, SEO, website
you are
rankings, and stuff like
you
that,
are
and putting
making a big
information out there that
you're
benefits them
making a
in the future.
big error.
So,
You're making a big you're conflating various artificial intelligence frameworks as being a
I'm just
singular
telling you what they
entity.
said. Yeah.
Just because you've got some search engine algorithms looking at the amount of data that's coming from the internet doesn't mean that that same algorithm or that same framework is also monitoring crime in your local area.
No, but
There
AI models
isn't
are
a
trained off
single
public
there isn't a
data,
single artificial
now
intelligence framework.
hold on, let Mr. Robot respond to that because
Okay.
So, like, yeah, AI is trained on like government statistics and stuff like that, like official data, but also like more recent models like DeepSeek also like search the internet, go through the top results, and basically give you output based on that. So I'm saying like that can be poisoned. So
yeah,
Yeah, but you missed my point. Just because DeepSeek is doing that, that doesn't mean DeepSeek is also administrating police activities. There could be a
I'm not
totally
saying it
different
is.
framework that has got no
I'm not
connection
saying it is.
to
I'm saying
DeepSeek.
in the future, government officials will use AI to to make decisions on policy, because people will become more reliant on AI rather than search engines
You,
to
I
go
think
through the internet.
you are conflating artificial intelligence. In fact, you should be using the term artificial intelligences, plural, rather than a
Sure. Yeah.
singular in
Well,
this
of course.
term.
I mean, there's different models and so on, but as Sam Altman said, in the future, he's predicting that there will be only a few big models that we'll use that are like highly trained on lots of parameters, and other people will build apps on that model. So, like, there is a chance of like reducing AI down in the future to only like a few big players that have the machine power to do it. So, yeah, I'm just saying that's a risk
So
in the
you
future.
are so you're saying at some point in the future, whenever that may be, that could be tomorrow, that could be next week,
Well,
that
I
could be next
look
year,
what's already happened. How
in
reliant
2
have we
billion
already
years'
become on
time.
AI? You know?
But you
I'm
saying
just
that
telling you,
there's
this is
going to
what
be some
government
sort of
officials are saying.
monopoly.
So,
You
eh?
were saying that there's going to be some sort of monopoly on this technology,
Well, there's a
on
risk of
this.
that. I think we should definitely work to make that not
That
happen by keeping it open source.
now
And
that is actually going to be one of the things we're going to be discussing. So the monopolies is actually a real issue that a lot of people are discussing. And before we get there, though, I want to point out something again because when it comes to freaking detecting crimes and accidents, these AIs are also going to be analyzing video feeds and they're going to be detecting suspicious behaviors. So, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be detecting, they're going to be monitoring these video feeds. And it doesn't really matter if it's uh, plural or singular because whoever's using that AI is going to choose what program they want to use. So, some form of AI is going to be monitoring these video feeds and determining what is suspicious behavior.
You are saying going to. I
they
love your
already
usage. I love your usage of going to, not the possibility, not that it could happen, but it's going to. You're making
It's already been
an
happening for a
assumption.
long time, but they use our mobile phones and our metadata and stuff like that. But in the past, it wasn't so easy to go through all this mass amount of data. But now they got AI that can condense it down and make decisions on whether it's suspicious or not. And they already have files on all of our names, and it just keeps adding to it over time, especially if you use your regular apps like Google and Facebook and stuff like that. They just compile a big repository of like your habits and your thoughts and your beliefs and everything like that. And like one day when the
So
government
you
decides that that's a risk, you'll get a knock on the door. Like,
so you're saying that it doesn't matter which organization, as an example, it doesn't matter if you're Google or using Facebook, that data's all merged into one.
No, they work together with the same with the same
Who's saying that
objective.
they? In the UK, we've got in the EU, EEA, we've got things like the General Data Protection Regulations, which limits data flowing from one organisation to another organisation.
Right.
so there's no such thing as two-tier policing, and there's no such thing as the government not obeying its own laws. I mean, look at the US. They said they're not going to spy on US citizens, and what's happening now? They've been doing it the whole time,
Okay.
as if
Technically,
they're
they
going
have
to
to be
obey
spying
those
on.
laws. I don't believe that one
Yeah.
second.
So with all this, with cameras, sensors, and tracking systems, they do raise serious questions about surveillance and consent. Okay.
Granted.
Now, the big question I'm wanting to know is who owns the data. Okay, and how is it used? That's the thing that gets to me when it comes to this information. And is it being sold or misused? You know what I mean? Are
Who
they?
polices the NSA? Who polices the police? You know what I mean? And they just found
Exactly.
like in
Um,
the NSA and a bunch of those top spy agencies, employees were passing around child porn on these government servers.
Mhm.
So, there's always going to be a chance of like rich players buying their way into these like powerful structures, and the public doesn't have any insight into that or any control over it. So
And
that's a big.
another thing that really gets my attention is like AI systems. They can actually unintentionally reinforce like social biases, um, with things like policing or public services.
They
Now,
can create social biases now. Look at these Elon Musk protests and stuff like that. It's just from the media pumping out a narrative over and over again, and people believe it, or enough people believe it to create a bias, create a reaction.
well, see
And then
me.
of course the government's always there to provide the solution, which is increased laws, reduced freedom. Every time.
But see, me and Mark's had this conversation too. Whenever I brought up Chat GPT about it lying to you, and that the thing of it is he mentioned it, and I agreed with him that somebody had to program that in there, had to teach Chat GPT to intentionally lie to me. So whenever they're talking about this bias, they're saying that whoever is programming the AI can literally just program it to be more conservative, more woke, more Democrat, whatever, and they will be trained to think that way. Okay, and
Well, yeah. I mean,
it'll
I say it all the time. You can't if someone is like censoring an AI. I get that there needs to be some kind of guardrails against really malicious stuff, maybe, but the real value is in uncensored AI that can give you trustworthy intelligence. Because when you're always having to question or like, argue with the AI to try and get the information you want, or when it's always like polluting the data that it gives you, it's completely useless in my mind.
right.
It's no better than watching the mainstream news or something to try and get truth.
Exactly. Now, also with that, another thing that really uh, gets me is the more connected devices. And that equals more potential hacking targets. You know what I'm saying? So with all of this going on, where everybody's getting connected into freaking uh, AI, they're getting connected with 5G, and maybe one of these days we'll end up having this smart city, you know what I'm saying, type setup. If everybody's connected into that, that means that there's more potential for hacking targets, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
and the riskiest of all is hacking our own nervous systems, I would say, because like especially like just like the Neuralink for one, imagine if that gets hacked by an AI and it's trying to convince you to do something against your will. It could just like subtly release little bits of dopamine when you think about a certain thing over time until you actually feel like this is a good thing. That's just one example. They can do that with actual light beams, where they're in a monitor screen. They can change the frequency of the beams that hits your eye, and that goes into your nervous system because now your nervous system is regulating at that frequency, and it can induce states of consciousness. That's why I believe, like when you're watching regular TV, sometimes you go into like a trance, and you're like, "What the hell? I wasn't thinking like the last 10 minutes." You know what I mean? So yeah, I would say that's. I mean, obviously, data hacking and all that is a big risk too, and we'll have to just keep improving our security there. But um, yeah, there's a lot of area. I think we're developing or like we're going too gung ho on AI too quickly for us to even really understand what we're doing. It's like
Yeah.
monkeys playing with fire,
Especially when it comes to critical infrastructure like water, power, and transit systems. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that I honestly think that we also have to, before we start getting into that area, we have to be secured against cyber attacks first. They need to make sure that freaking that doesn't happen because I mean, you think about it, if we get freaking water, power, and transit all hooked up into freaking some a smart city network like that, it's just it's vulnerable. Could you imagine an entire city without
It
freaking?
already is, man. I mean, all that stuff is already connected up to the internet. And I guarantee you, there's already governments that have figured out ways to hack into all of it. They could shut down the whole country from another country right now if they want.
We're talking about
Um,
AI though.
yeah, I mean, AI just increases the speed and the accurate and the like accuracy of finding zero-day attacks and stuff like that. And you couple that with quantum computing, you can hack anything. So they
Why
are
why
working.
even why even bother on that? I mean, a lot of I'm only going by UK infrastructure, but a lot of UK infrastructure is already being manufactured by Chinese.
Well, that's true too.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. The Israelis also put
and
backdoors in a
if
lot
we
of the
do have
chips.
if we do see a war in, let's say, 10, 15 years' time against the Chinese, well, the UK is screwed.
Well, I mean, when it comes to these smart systems,
100%.
though, when it comes to these smart systems too, they're very expensive to maintain. So the next question that would most definitely be important is will all parts of the city benefit or will only the wealthy areas benefit from it? You know what I mean? Like, who's going to benefit from this supposed smart city? Because it will be
Again,
it will be very very expensive to build and maintain.
I'm not sure about very expensive to maintain and build because of
Uh,
prefabrication. But you are talking on what ifs, and and I could say, what if the entire infrastructure is paid by produced by taxation? So everybody,
If it's
all citizens,
taxation, it's not going to happen, dude. Like if it's off of taxes, I mean, because I mean that's just not going to happen. If it does, freaking there'll be a
that
riot.
is also the only power that we have as individuals over the government. Is if people en masse refuse to pay taxes based on ethical concerns, that's the only way you could really rein in what they do.
no, there's other ways of reigning in government. I
Well,
mean,
mass riots, maybe. I don't know how else you
That's
do.
no, but there's
what
also
I was getting
peaceful
ready
ways
to
of doing
say.
that. I was thinking that, but yeah, there's also peaceful ways of doing that. Also, we live in or we're meant to live in democratic societies. We can knock on our local MP's door and say, "Oi, I don't like this. Do something about it."
Now, UL Adamas
I'm
said
not
some more
convinced that
stuff.
works very well.
He said
Well,
AI.
in theory, at least. In
He said
theory.
AI right now is crowdsourced human data and algorithms. It's people communicate on the level that we've made networks available. People would still be at that speed. They consider AI processes. And then he went on to say, yeah, AI will probably be broke out into different sectors and branches, likely like a network, but still overseen by government and corporate system
Mm.
algorithms. Useless, no, unless they are open source. And then he goes on, it's just training environments. Basically, what people are interacting with is just an algorithm agent using some of their their personal data and the training data that it was given to produce conversation. Uh,
all these natural language processing artificial intelligence, which I still disagree that they are artificial intelligence, but that's a matter of opinion. Still use public available data, so they will still go to places like Wikipedia to collect the data.
Okay.
And obviously, those data points are written by humans.
Now, he says it's no different than right now how you can get a whole bunch of people to do a certain type of dance, listen to a certain type of music, or believe in a certain type of politics. They're already trying taxation too, is what he says. That's what the tariffs are about. It's just another word for tax, just like they used to call it stamping.
I'm
So,
not sure if the tariffs are directly related to artificial intelligence or that sort of technology. Really, that's the US tariffs is really just trying to create a level playing field, sort of thing.
now, this is something that I wanted to bring up is now the thing that really sticks out to me is like you get a lot of these people who are into this whole smart city idea, and they're always talking about equity, okay, and governance.
Have
Uh,
you actually heard someone that is pro smart city? Because I haven't. I've never heard
you
someone
know,
else.
I've actually heard them. They're a lot of them are from Canada, believe it or not. Me and Mark was playing around, and I was talking to him about people who are voluntarily wanting to chip themselves, and they've actually got like people selling freaking chips to people, and they would put them in their system like a tattoo. I mean, you could in some places and this is
Good.
all
Round those people up, put them in a smart city. Don't let them ever come back out again. And we can
it's
just keep them safely over there, out near Alaska somewhere, and just forget about them.
now. Now that's one issue that I have, and then like they always get into this thing on saying that it would be okay if citizens know how systems work and can influence them. So if you have the ability to freaking influence it and make it not do certain things, then it's okay. You know what I mean? And this is kind of rationale they've got.
We've got a wealth of
Things like what?
information at the moment about all kinds of subjects. I mean, a simple example is how many people will go to the supermarket and start reading the ingredients on what they buy.
Well, I got
Just because you've got the ability to find out this information, how many people are going to actually go out the way and find this information?
I do, for sure. Otherwise, that's really bad for you. I'd say most
Yeah,
things have compounds in it that's quite bad for you. I saw
but
today a
I mean,
guy still
on
has
average, how many
McDonald's from
people
2014 and it hasn't even molded. It
okay.
looks perfect.
Now, now this is actually something that is important because like Windows 11 just came out with the with Windows 11, and they have it set on default to where freaking Windows 11 can track your location. Now, if you go in and you manually turn that off, you can do it. But like Mark was saying, I mean, how many people are even aware of the fact that they have that on their computer and that they have to check those settings to make sure that that's
Check
turned
this
off?
out. I just set up an Android device today and like I had to do a factory reset after it's done an update because it like
Uh-huh.
old machine. So I did a factory reset and I couldn't even log into the device until I agreed to their terms of service. You click on it and it says, "Oh, we're just going to monitor what apps you have on your phone, how frequently you use them. Oh, yeah, and we might take your geolocation and like some personal information and stuff like that." And I'm like, there's no opting out. You can't skip it. You can't, it's built into the core of the machine. So yeah, it
Yeah,
frustrates the hell out of me. That's why
Again, this is
Linux all
down
the way.
to consumer knowledge, consumer want, and choice at the end of the day. I mean, when you talk about phones, you've got the two major operating systems, the Apple iOS and the Google version of Android, and how many phones, Android-based phones, off the shelf can you buy with a Android open source project
Well,
version
see,
of Android?
Well,
that's
that's
that's all
normally.
great and pretty and everything, okay, but like what's going on is even more in depth than that. Like they put out this portrayal that everything is warm and fuzzy and that these services are going to be designed for everybody, not just the tech savvy or the or people who are affluent with what they're doing. Okay, it's going to be for everybody.
Well,
You
the new Windows computers come out with an actual AI processing unit, an actual chip that's just for the AI, and that is constantly in communication with Windows servers and stuff. So like, there's basically infinite amount of potential to be tracked and through your operating system now, and you can't turn it off.
and
And
then
I
like
believe,
with what
actually,
you're what,
just to go back to the Microsoft Windows points, I believe with a recent update, now it's impossible if you've got
okay, he's gone. He just died.
Homo Pro versions and the educational versions, you have to actually, if you want to install a copy of Windows, Microsoft Windows on your machine, you have to sign up for remote accounts. So you have to provide a a Microsoft email address.
Now, well, Mr.
Which is
Robot
often
was saying,
connected to your phone and everything as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
now
Well,
what
in theory, that's up to you, but yeah, in
all,
theory.
all what you were saying right there, Miss Robot, also goes into another thing that I've been hearing a lot of, and they're saying that this is all supposed to adapt to like future technologies and social changes, and they use that as an excuse. You know what I mean? So they can go in and they can make changes on your computer and stuff like that. So we're only doing it so that we can adapt to future technologies and social changes that are taking place so that you get all the stuff that you deserve,
oh
man.
yeah, it's always for
Yeah.
convenience and for your own safety.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
again, those who give up essential safety or essential liberty for safety, again, I
that's,
shouldn't need to finish that
They've
one.
had that stuff for a long time. They're just making it more efficient. They're just upgrading it, you know.
yeah.
Um, that doesn't mean it makes it any better. I think the sooner people become conscious of this stuff, the better decisions they can make on, what kind of software they're going to use in the future. Because using a uh, closed source operating system that openly gives your information out to untrusted third parties is no better than living in a smart city, is my argument.
Now, do you guys believe that smart
I've,
cities
I've done
help?
quite a lot of retail support in the IT industry, and as far as the average consumer is concerned, they'll just buy a new machine with a copy of an operating system on it with the applications they need mostly already on it. The average end user is not going to spend hours trying to work how to install an alternative operating system. If they want a new up-to-date operating system, then just go out and buy a new computer.
Okay. So
So yeah.
let me ask you this. This is important. Okay. I want to ask both of you this and see what your takes are. Do you guys think that freaking smart cities helps specifically in making like urban life more efficient, uh, res- responsive, and sustainable?
we haven't got a specific. We haven't got. Smart cities are not really a thing at this present moment, so you can't really make a judgment on something that isn't actually there.
Well, they're attempting
My
it.
gut feeling on it is
They're
that
tempting, but yeah.
it's part of the
Um,
overall control agenda. Same with smartphones, smart meters, smart TVs. All this stuff over time has just been proven to be there to monitor and control us. And I think actually the Amish is more sustainable than us going into smart cities that could potentially be used to coerce and control us through limiting our access to essential needs rather than being out on the land, being in touch with nature, growing our own food, stuff like that. And plus, you're going to live in an environment that's like an electromagnetic nightmare, along with like toxins in the air and the food and everything. So I think we need to take a leaf from our ancestors and go a little bit back to connection with nature and like doing things the natural way. I think there needs to be a balance there somewhere. Plus,
again,
for us to adopt whatever the powers that be gives us is silly, considering they've just been proven over and over to be psychopaths that want to control everything. So until we solve that issue, we're just putting ourselves at risk when we listen to them.
Okay.
yeah, but there's two approaches there. Either technology controls you, or you control the technology.
All right. Now,
For some
before
of us more knowledgeable, more they've got
now
Same
he's
goes for your biological computer, your
wider
brain.
technical
You don't think
acumen.
for yourself.
Get the technology to. Again, you're talking hypothetical.
now hold up. Now before we go any further in the conversation, I want to ask you guys.
Commercial venture at the moment.
Now, Mark is freezing in and out, so while he's
He's
freezing,
actually just having an epileptic fit.
yeah, I know he does that. It just kind of like flips out on him. His whole camera and shit flips out, and like
Okay.
now the thing I want to ask is like at this point, this is where I want to get into virtual space. Now, virtual space gets caught up into the metaverse. Now if it's up to you guys if you want to go any further or not, or we can continue this at a later time because it's already at like 2 hours and 15 minutes, and Mark is like in hyperbolic mode.
Okay.
I could say something about it. I've got a little bit of experience
I, I,
recently.
I just want to point out one thing there. Do not conflate
He froze up again.
He's lost it.
principle with a product. Conflate it's a principle with a product. Roger, you talked about virtual spaces and then you jumped into metaverse, which is a product.
The concept of metaverse is a shared virtual space where users can interact, work, and
But do not
play,
conflate the two.
and has gained substantial traction in 2024. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, just because Facebook called themselves Meta doesn't mean they own that concept. It's been around for a long time. It's only recently that we've made big strides in making it actually happen. I remember playing those online Second Life and stuff like that, where you had like
Yeah.
a metaverse type thing. But I will say I've gotten to play with a little bit of those like virtual reality headsets recently, and they're quite convincing, and they trick your body into feeling things that feel like as if it's real. And I could see that being developed to the point where you almost couldn't tell the difference between reality and the machine world. And then we're getting very close to a matrix type situation where maybe a lot of people will try and escape into the fantasy world, which I think could be not good for humanity in general. But also, I'll say, like, once you merge your whole perception with like machines, there is a potential to trick your nervous system into feeling and believing things that you wouldn't normally do. So it comes back to the trust thing. Do you trust the companies that are making these things, um, with your nervous input and output? You know, so um, yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
Now, the the whole thing behind virtual spaces is well, what it refers to is a simulated environment that is generated by computers and experienced by users through digital references, and that's often in three dimensions. Now, unlike physical space, which is grounded in tangible reality, virtual space exists only in the realm of data and code. It can be accessed through a variety of devices such as a desktop computers, smartphones, or immersive hardware like virtual reality headsets. That's what you were talking about, Mr. Robot. Now, what makes virtual space compelling is its ability to create the illusion of presence, interaction, and scale without the physical constraints of the real world. Now, in many applications, virtual space is used to represent environments that mirror or extend physical reality. In architecture and design, for example, virtual space allows for the modeling and walkthrough of buildings before they are constructed. Now, in gaming, it becomes a fully interactive landscape filled with characters, rules, and narratives. Now, but in social and professional context, virtual space is where meetings, events, and interactions occur in digital form. And that often is represented by avatars and personalized icons. Now, a significant development in virtual space has been its integration into the concept of the metaverse. Now, the metaverse is a broad term for a persistent and shared virtual space that blends digital environments with social interaction. Now, in these spaces, users can move, communicate, transact, build, and even maintain a continuous digital identity. Unlike traditional websites or applications, which are largely static and two-dimensional, metaverse environments strive to offer a sense of immersive and real-time engagement. Technically, virtual space relies on a combination of real-time rendering, networked systems, data synchronization, and artificial intelligence. These components work together to simulate realistic physics, lighting, motion, and interaction among users and digital objects. The more advanced the simulation, the more convincing the virtual space feels. Some systems incorporate haptic feedback, voice input, and motion tracking to enhance immersion. Virtual space is also being explored for its potential in education, medicine, remote work, and therapy. It offers ways to recreate the dynamics of in person experiences without requiring travel or physical presence. Virtual classrooms, operating room simulators, and digital twin environments for industrial training are all examples of this. While virtual space has enormous potential, it also raises questions about privacy, data ownership, identity, and blending of real and synthetic experiences. As people spend more time interacting in these environments, especially with the rise of virtual commerce and decentralized assets, the line between real-world activities and virtual behaviors begin to blur. The future of virtual space is expected to evolve beyond mere representation and into forms of embodiment where users not only see and hear virtual environments but also feel and respond as if they are physically there. This could change how people socialize, work, learn, and even express themselves on a daily basis. Now, Meta Platform Inc. is a multinational technology company based in Menlo Park, California, best known for developing Facebook, the world's largest social media platform. It was founded in 2004 by Mark Zuckerberg and a group of Harvard classmates. In October of 2021, the company rebranded itself as Meta, signaling a strategic shift towards the metaverse, a virtual immersive future version of the internet. So, with all that I just read, is there anything that sticks out to you guys that you want to talk about?
Um, I think one of the, like I just want to quickly mention two of the best movies that sort of show where this could go is Ready Player One, Steven Spielberg, it's quite a good one, and Free Guy, that other one. It's more like an augmented reality where they play the
Words
games.
in that one.
Yeah.
But basically, the idea behind it is like people either neglect the real world for the to escape into the metaverse, or the lines between reality and the metaverse become blurred to the point where you potentially put yourself and others at risk for playing these augmented reality games, you know. And I played a few of these games in the past recently, and I tell you what, it is super damn fun. Some of them, I was playing one where you're like a cyber cop with these like futuristic guns, and you're shooting robots in the streets and shit. It was incredible. But so I could see like it is probably the future of gaming. It's where it's gonna go. Um, but yeah, ultimately, I just think we should try and push it towards the open source kind of world. But you know, it's going to cost a lot of money probably at first to develop this stuff. So
Anyway,
I'm going to stay away from it until I see what people turn out like they use it.
see, like right there, when you brought that up, you kind of jumped ahead of me again, right there, because this what you're discussing there with that movie is kind of ironic because, or the movies, period, because those are considered hybrid uh, entertainment, and that's a term that's being used a lot here now since they've started incorporating AI and gaming in with movies. Like you'll see some movies that have come out here recently that involve gaming. So what they've done is they've created hybrid movies that incorporate video games with movies. You know, so, and that is true. It's kind of ironic that movie is about the same thing that people are talking about. It's because it's a hybrid movie. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I've seen one of those where you kind of choose your own adventure through the movie, and you get to make choices at like pivotal moments and stuff like that.
Well, it's not really that complicated. They have what The Last of Us, I believe, is a movie that came out that is also a hybrid movie. You've played The Last of Us, haven't you? It's a video game.
Uh, I don't really play video games that much. I've seen it. I haven't played it.
They've actually came out with a movie or TV series maybe for it. I don't remember for sure if it's a.
Yes, I've seen. I think I've seen the TV series. I can't really remember it that well. But
So it is pretty interesting how all that's playing out, and that's something that I really. It's strange that you brought that up because that was something that I was really into learning about too. It's really strange how everything's getting kind of hybrid or becoming a hybrid where it's intertwining with one with the other. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I think it's going to be pretty useful for some things. You know, like augmented reality glasses with maps and stuff like that. I think will be pretty common. You know, shopping aids and like, you know, even just navigating the internet, stuff like that. I think that'll be the way to go. Like people probably use that over phones, carrying phones around. So yeah, I see that could be used as something that can improve efficiency and like usefulness of data for us. But at the same time, yeah, I think we just got to be careful on who we trust with it, who we like, who we fund basically with we vote with our dollars. So I think people just need to do their own research before they just buy the first thing that comes up.
Now,
That's the problem. People do their own research. Yeah, people, consumers tend, as a general rule, consumers tend to be fairly lazy.
yeah,
That's true.
There was the latest biggest adverts. There was it's the old Ford joke, isn't it? You can buy any car in any color as long as it's black. Um, People will see these pretty adverts. Buy the latest mobile phone, buy the latest, I don't know, consumer good, and then if they want to question why they're buying us, then we just purchase it.
And on top of that,
We
I would say they're also unusually loyal. Like once they get stuck on a certain platform, they won't want to leave it because it feels uncomfortable. They won't like switch it up to try something new once they've been using the same thing for a while, even though the same thing gets more and more expensive over time, less and less efficient. Like Windows is a classic example where like people have been using Windows for 10, 20 years. They don't want to switch, but it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. But or Facebook. And we need to
probably
get out of that mentality and try new things, I think.
well,
I'm just
see,
thinking of the Apple sort of arguments that a lot of the so-called fanboys play around use. Yeah, yeah.
now, let me before we go any further, I wanted to say the comments that UL Adamas has. He said, "Even your idea. This is about smart cities. He says, even your ideas will be part of the city's data." Now, after that, he goes on to say, track your location and all data that is processed by their operating systems. And after that, he goes, there it's in all operating system agreement now. So I'm guessing he's saying with the agreement terms of service and stuff that you were talking about, Mark.
Hmm.
Um, so it's actually all operating systems agreements now. Then he goes on to say, think about how many programs you are no longer able to access that will no longer run on systems, even if you want them to run because of upgrades. And,
Indeed, indeed.
and then he says, more technology, integrated cities are coming. How that technology is integrated is how the people will allow it to be integrated. And then he goes, yeah, the metaverse is just a virtual space. They want
Hmm.
to encompass a large, vast area of the network through social adaptation via cheaper devices. And then he goes on, he says the exploration of physical space has become hampered by social systems and the environment. These explorations will have to be taken in, so virtual space is the next environment. The brain likes to perceive that it's right in the choices that it's made in the past. People usually will then seek out confirmation bias that helps to produce those chemical rushes for the feels. A lot of wood plays on people's minds is nostalgia and novelty. Marketing has learned to use a lot of marketing has learned to use a lot of these as their tools for social integration, and we can be called manipulation. Now, the one thing that really stands out to me about these visual or virtual uh, this metaverse or the virtual spaces is the fact that we were just talking about smart cities. Okay, now they're turning around and they got all of these devices set up that's going to monitor you and everything. And where do you think that data is going to go? Okay, we're getting into this whole thing about these virtual spaces and creating freaking games that are set up virtually. Um, and it's easily, I mean, everybody knows that Meta Platforms Inc. has been involved in social experiments. So to me, I don't see it too far of a stretch that they're going to take this data and they're going to apply it to actual uh, virtual spaces, to where when you go in there, it's going to feel like you're actually in a real world. So that was a
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they already have that kind of technology behind the scenes. Um, what do you think is the risks of when it becomes virtually indistinguishable?
when you start feeling the effects of what's being done, like if somebody touches you or
Yeah, yeah, but what potential risks or what detriments could you see from something like that?
death. If somebody shoots you in a virtual space and you feel it, you could die.
Do you die in the real world, like in the Matrix?
I wouldn't. I mean, it depends on how far in you are. You know what I'm saying? If you're, because I know a lot of people who are internet junkies. Okay, I know a lot of people who are hooked on freaking VR. They're hooked on metaverse and they're hooked on freaking cryptocurrency, and that's all they think about all day long. Now, if you turn around and you give them this kind of technology to where they can just go into this world and be immersed in it and they die, there's a good chance they'll die from it. It just depends on how far in they are, how hooked on it they really
Well,
are.
here's another one to think about is definitely going to be used for like virtual girlfriends and virtual
Oh,
prostitution.
that's going to be great. I'm going to love
So,
that.
yeah, of course. But will you then be motivated to go get a real one and have kids?
Hell no, dude.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I'm
Yeah,
not.
imagine what that will do to the human population.
Let that
I don't know. The year reminded me of Huxley's Brave New World. Um, I, if we ever get to that situation, I want to be the character John the Savage, I the only person that still believes in touching grass and going out and being the person that's living off the land,
Yeah.
whereas everybody else is being controlled
I'll be
by.
there with you, Mark. I'll be there with you.
Okay. So now, just so we can let people know about Meta. Meta owns and operates Facebook. Okay, and they also own and operate Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, which is on their own Facebook chats, um, as well as Reality Labs. Now, I believe Reality Labs is the one that does the division for virtual augmentation and stuff. The,
Yeah, they're closely um, turned into trying to with
they're the ones that do the Meta Quest, which
the tech glasses people.
yeah, they're the ones that, and that used to be called Oculus, right?
Yeah, that's the one I use.
I'm not sure if Oculus was a Ray-Ban product.
Oh no, not Ray Ban.
Yeah, I would have to do the research on that. I can't remember.
It was a separate company, and then Facebook acquired it or Meta or
Okay,
whatever.
okay. Now they also do the VR
Yeah,
headsets and the AR glasses. That's that would be the alternate reality glasses, right? Isn't that what it stands for? AR.
Yeah, yeah. I used one of the older ones, and even that was quite good.
alternative.
Now, Reality Labs also builds the infrastructure for the metaverse, just so you guys know.
Augmented, sorry, not
Like
alternative.
a real
Augmented.
to Meta at the moment in that space?
So there
What'd you
you go.
say?
Is there any other big company that's like a decent competitor with Meta in the virtual reality space?
They have some, like Minds Gaming is playing around with A-Frame, and I mean,
Also, as
you
Meta,
can't really compare it.
me and Roger was discussing this before the stream, but has Meta really made any major inroads into this situation? Because, as far as I can see, um, consumers are not really interested.
Well, I think they've lost a lot of trust over the last few years, that, especially since COVID, when they like just tried to manipulate everyone. So I would suspect a lot of people are dubious about their products now. But
I
I'll say
mean,
like,
you can
some of
create
the
products, but if people are not going to buy into those products, then
Well,
those products, yeah.
well, yeah.
I believe there's something more going on because you are right. Even like there's been billions of dollars that have been annually invested uh, into Meta in their what they envision. Okay, but people don't really want, according to what they're saying, people don't really want to spend significant time in virtual worlds, and it's not doing like they want it. But also, for me, I see it from a different direction too. I find it odd that Facebook is doing the virtual reality over here, and then Alphabet Inc., which we talked about 2 weeks ago, is caught up in the AI over there. So, and I still believe 100% that eventually these two technologies are going to be incorporated with one another 100%. So
Not sure, because obviously there's the sort of competition sort of
that
aspect.
well, I know that, but I do see them collaborating with one another to where they can kind of further their technology. Like you take this, I take this, and we'll freaking come together eventually with something. You know, I mean,
You know what's more
Not
fun than
necessarily.
reality
They
goggles?
just create competent products.
hold on, Mr. Robot said something. What was you saying?
I was just gonna say what came to mind is what's more fun than virtual reality goggles is reality goggles. Uh, where you like, have you ever flown a drone with a headset on and you're like in the drone? Oh my god, it's like the best. Especially those tiny little drones, you can like fly underneath cars and shit. You're like a bumblebee flying around. It's so cool. I'd
Oh my
prefer that
god,
over virtual reality any day. Yeah.
that is. I mean, I don't even think I'd want to do that. So,
Some
um,
can go like 200 kilometers an hour in like a few seconds. Right.
now, the thing that also, whenever we were talking about smart cities and it comes to Meta and AI and what they're doing in these virtual spaces, that really stuck out to me is how they're using AI now. Like Facebook and Instagram, they're moderating harmful content uh, with AI now. You know, and I find,
Who gets to decide what's harmful? You know what I mean?
yeah,
These bloody
Uh,
multi-billion-dollar companies that have an agenda. They can,
yeah, facial recognition and advertising too is something that apparently AI is taking over on when it comes to Meta and Facebook. So not only are they is AI determining uh, what's harmful content, but they're also using facial recognition and advertise for facial recognition and advertisement. You know, which I think is really
I don't know if you guys have this, but here in when you do self checkout in the supermarket, it has a little camera on the checkout station, and then you give it the credit card, right? And so now your face is tied to your name, and where does that data go? Who do they sell it to? And that if that gets incorporated into like a city surveillance grid, they can just know who you are without your phone all the time, where you are, what you do. So
Yeah,
yeah.
but presumably this is data that's been handled by governments, and therefore you've got
Well, governments would have a massive interest in
regulatory.
acquiring that data. You know what I mean? Legally or illegally.
Yeah,
So my
yeah, but as a British citizen, if I can go to any government body and say I want a subject access request form, and then I can demand all the data that they've got on me, or well, the majority of data they've got on me. I can review that data.
well, in theory, but look how long it's taken for the JFK files and stuff like that to come out. We still don't have the Epstein files.
I'm
I'm just
talking about personal data. Sorry, JFK died 60 odd
Well,
years ago. Why would
well,
a corpse
well,
be
hold on,
interested
hold on,
in looking at me through these personal data?
hold on. Let's keep it off politics and everything and on tech.
so my point is, uh, I think that we're in the last year or couple of years now where we're going to have any privacy whatsoever. It's coming up to the point now where everyone's going to be able to be tracked all the time, regardless of
I think,
consent, regardless, and by people that we don't know or elect. And yeah, it's only a
I
matter of.
think you are hypothesizing and being a bit
Well, I'm just aware of the technology
unprofessional.
that's coming out. You know, they already have satellites up now that live monitor the entire globe, visually, electromagnetically. Now they got the 5G Wi-Fi, which is also basically location detectors. Um, when you combine all these data sets together, you get a pretty clear picture of what's going on the entire surface of the planet. They can even penetrate into buildings and stuff like that. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that's my point.
Again, it's, you're just basing your arguments on technology per se. You're not looking at legal frameworks. You're not looking at regulations. You're not looking at
Legal
um,
frameworks are there
the
to control, not to
implementation
control the
of
controllers.
now hold on.
technology.
Let me also point something out too. They are also Meta is also not only using uh, their AI for facial recognition and advertising, they're also using it for um, tracking or gesture tracking. Okay, on Metaverse, they're doing it to where they can track gestures, language interactions, and world generation, and then it goes on to where they're actually uh, using Meta's revenue. Uh, okay, and with AI, and that revenue usually comes from targeted advertising based on user data. Small businesses, marketers, and large brands buying ad space. Also, they make their revenue off of personalized ad systems driven by AI and user behavior tracking. So that's how they're making money. Okay, and this is all um, what AI is being used for. It's for targeting advertisings. Like when you go on and you start having a chat on Facebook about a topic and you mysteriously look over and there's an advertisement on the side of your page that just so happened to coincide with it. That's what that is.
And they're coming for
How
your
about,
dreams. You,
how
you hear
about
about that?
for those people who don't use meta platform software or platforms?
Well,
It's not affecting them, isn't it?
we're talking about
Again,
Meta.
this is down to consumer choice.
We're talking about Meta. We're talking
Yeah,
like 2 weeks ago. We were talking about.
how many meta platform products do you use?
Let's stay
You
focused on
yourself?
Meta.
Mark, the fact
Yeah.
is, most Androids have Facebook pre-installed and they won't let you delete it.
Uh,
So you're already
okay.
basically
Okay.
agreeing
Um,
their terms of.
okay. I'm in this list. I'm in a bit more of a unique situation. Say, install my own operating system, or my chosen operating system on my phone
This is though, Mark.
personally,
People don't
so I
think about
don't
these
have to
things. They just
explode.
buy a phone.
But
So, okay, let's just ask this. Where do you guys think Meta is heading?
I think it's already dead, to be honest. Like, I go on Facebook and I check it out. It's just a wasteland of like, chicks shaking their booties and freaking random crappy posts. There's no substance to it anymore, and anything that was good has been censored off, or you know, uh, it's just terrible now. Like, I don't know why people are still. I think people are still just on there because they have everyone else on there. There's no other real use for it, to be honest.
I don't know. It's still a good platform for the purpose of marketing.
It's still backed by the intelligence community, so it's going to stay around. It's not going anywhere.
And corporate
But
entities, and yeah,
they're
so
rich enough to stay around.
who cares
But
if it's backed by
I think there's a lot of
that's not really their
opportunity for
thing.
new upcomers to get into that space. But they definitely have a massive head start in just how much money they've thrown at it. Um, yeah, I would like to personally see more social media platforms integrated with open commerce. I think that's a really Zuckerberg was going to do that at one point. He was going to bring out like a Facebook coin, but then the banks like quelled that. But if you did something like that, like merge cryptocurrency with a social media platform, I think it'll take off. Yeah, that kind of thing.
That is if consumers wish to use cryptocurrencies, and for the majority of consumers, fiat currency is still sufficient enough. After all,
Give it a few,
you try
give it a few months.
you
The
try
dollar will
buying.
No, what was that? Okay, you're freezing up. Slow down. Slow down. Slow down, wild man.
I'm slow.
Okay, now,
You
now,
still want
now,
me to
have another slider, Mark.
re-say what you just said because it all.
Okay. Where was I? You just totally made me lose my track.
Okay, so let me just go ahead and say this now. Now, where I believe it is like with billions that are annually invested into AI and the metaverse and infrastructure. That's not even talking about custom hardware and stuff. I don't really think that it's going to progress any further because even though they say that freaking they're going to be putting focus on creator economies and like they're also talking like you guys said about digital identities and virtual commerce and good stuff like that. They do pretty much have dominance in social media, but they also have to face competition like TikTok. Okay, now you've got that going on, so I don't really see them really doing very much. And you also have to take into consideration that they're not any longer just Facebook. You know what I mean? They're like a really really huge tech empire, and they're really pushing like the AI, VR, and alternate reality stuff, and the metaverse as well. Which it hasn't hit off, but there's a lot of people who think it will eventually hit off sometime. So
Maybe. But there's a lot of people that still believe that the earth is flat.
When they make it cheap and convenient enough, people will take it up.
yeah,
Possibly. You can see a lot of
Reality
arguments.
is cheaper than a smartphone. I think people will just automatically get it.
yeah.
Well, yeah, just because there's an icon on the phone that allows you to access these things doesn't mean you have to tap that icon. Doesn't mean you have to use the services.
That's
Yeah.
that's foolishness.
Right?
I mean,
Well,
that's just complete foolishness. You mean to tell me that
what?
you mean to tell me that if you see a button, you're not going to push a button?
Reminds me of an old
He's got you there, Mark.
No, if people do not wish to use a product, and even if the product's in the face, then they won't use that product.
Okay. Whatever, dude. Whatever.
Not everybody is a stupid, blind consumer that would just say, "Oh, pretty picture, pretty icon, let's tap."
Yeah, but majority would be, wouldn't they?
Okay. Thank God I'm not the majority of people. Yeah.
Not counting pets and stuff. Yeah.
That is just completely wrong, guys. I mean, no.
Why?
Well, first of all, it's just wrong because, like, if you see a button, freaking, it's your responsibility and your duty to push that button.
Your duty.
As a member of society, you have to push the button because that is what,
Going to make it, are they?
you know, the city doesn't just put a button out in the middle of town and just leave it there without freaking the understanding that if you walk by and see that button, you need to push it.
Just to bring it back to AI for a second, guys.
Okay.
Okay.
What really concerns me the most is we have this like AI Cold War situation going on right now where each country is trying to develop the most advanced AI the quickest, right? And my concern is when it gets to the point where it's smarter than humans and improving itself, and they get put onto servers, like let's say in space, that can't be shut down. That's when we get into a dangerous, like existential threat situation. And I think like we're only a couple of years away from something like that. And so at what point are the people going to actually stand up and demand some kind of like public oversight over the creation of these things, you know, especially in the military? Because I feel like they're the first ones that's going to abuse this technology. Yeah. So.
Well, I'm not so sure if I can agree with you in the next couple of years then.
Now,
I would say 2 to 4 years, maybe,
now
if it's not already there.
the thing that gets me
I
is
argue that.
I think that the general public is actually being freaking hypnotized into thinking like stupid people. You know what I'm saying? Um, and when you take a look at a lot of things that got out, especially in this virtual stuff, okay, you have like virtual concerts where you can go in and you can freaking listen to music performances and stuff. This is stuff that's supposed to hypnotize you with how great and how beautiful everything is when you go in there because they make like an entire area that looks like you're sitting in a freaking, you know, in a freaking, well, I don't know what they would call it, freaking where they do the singing and shit, auditorium, you know, and you're listening to a performance and stuff, listening to a virtual concert, and these are real people who are actually doing it. But you're in that room with all of these other people, and you're watching it together, but you're not really there. You're just in a virtual space.
Wow, that's
But
only for
don't
people
you do that
to a
with
real concert, and
Well,
the real thing's always better.
well, more people are getting involved in this stuff too, though. You know what I'm saying? And then plus the idea of using digital avatars. You know, that's another big thing that people are really getting into. They like the idea of creating this personality or this character that freaking they created. You know what I mean? So they're getting sucked into this world. You know, and
there's a
Yeah,
form of
and the risk is
narcissism.
that they lose touch with their real identity.
and,
they're
Yeah, there's a form of narcissism in that concept.
you know, well,
Um,
well, I mean, you think about it. If you get people hooked on that, then they won't be looking at things like AI being in control of the nuclear bomb. You know what I mean? So let's not worry about all that. You know, now all we've got to do is worry about trading our cryptocurrency and getting into the VR chat and freaking hanging out and creating mischief and listening to fine music and
I think I'm going to skip it all. I'm going to keep using fiat currency and sit here with a old gramophone and listen to 33 speed vinyls for the rest of my life.
well, there's a lot of hurdles we're gonna have to like overcome in the next couple of years as humanity if we're gonna survive. And I would think the most immediate threat is not only AI, it's all these wars we're getting all these nuclear powers into right now.
I
And
think I think you in danger of expecting these things to be faster than they probably will be.
well, I mean,
I
like
think if we can use AI to create more unification amongst humans and to settle disputes, I think that could be a good thing for us. I don't think AI is necessarily bad. Like it's about how you use it, and I think there's
Great.
potential for us
Court cases.
to
Instead of
good
having a
things.
human judge, you have a computer. Yeah, that doesn't raise a number of significant concerns.
well, I mean, it's fine and dandy to talk about AI and everything too, but I mean, there's also things that you also have to take into consideration when it comes to these virtual spaces as well. Like when it comes to freaking concerns about like what's actually yours. When you go onto these platforms and you start creating content, does it really belong to you? You know, what
Again,
about you were talking about
my answer.
identity,
You know my answer to that,
you know?
and it's related to users being aware of what they're signing up to,
I
i.e.,
actually
reading the
prefer.
contractual agreements.
I think the concept of ownership is leads to conflict, and I think a better model would be to allocate resources where it's needed and to give things out for free because everyone lives for free. And
For
I
free.
like the cooperative
Um,
model. And
Resources are there for
Well, hold
free.
on,
How the hell are those resources gathered in the first place?
hold on.
well, through volunteers that take them out of the ground and process them. How else
Well,
do you think?
Thank you, comrade commissar.
No, it's been
Yeah,
done before, Mark. People have
yes,
lived in cooperative communities
yes,
since the dawn
it's
of
been done
time.
before. Look
It's
at what
only
happened to the
it's only
Soviet
since the
Union.
Brits have
Look,
taken over
look
half
what
the world that
happened
they've
to
sold
China.
us on this slave money system that that you're promoting.
well, I mean, okay, look at NFTs. Okay, now that's something else that needs to be discussed there too. You guys are talking about ownership and stuff like that. NFTs, if used properly, could be a freaking form of your own personal possession, nobody else's. You know what I mean? It's like like off like proving ownership to a painting. You know what I mean? If you turn around and you create an NFT, that's exactly what that is. That is yours.
So
It's
it goes
same with Bitcoin.
actually,
Like
actually,
decentralized cryptocurrencies.
that reminds me of a conversation I
Okay,
had
you
using NFTs as a form of receipt.
right,
So
right, or
no more different than the
transaction.
paper-based
Also,
receipts.
the idea is that you don't have an intermediary. You own the keys in your own wallet on your own system, and you don't have to rely on like intermediaries like banks and stuff to look after it for you. Then you have to trust them. So
You've
that's
still got to
but
trust the people who create the blockchain. So you've still got to make sure that the infrastructure's there. So you're still going to have to
if
trust
that's
somebody.
then people can verify that it's legit, and they've done a pretty good job, I think, so far.
But people can verify. If I, let's say, bought a mobile phone, people can verify me purchasing that mobile phone because I've got a paper-based receipt saying I bought a mobile phone.
Well, you got to understand that shit's not as cool as buying NFTs.
Whatever, cool, whatever.
You got to understand it's a level of coolness, man. You
Oh,
gotta,
please, please.
you know what I mean? There's nothing cooler than having NFT.
Yeah, you are the height of fashion, aren't you?
I love running on NFTs. Look at that bad.
Like, haven't you seen all those cool NFT girls that are on freaking X, formerly
No.
Twitter, dude? They
There
like,
needs to be a use case for it that's more than just owning a novelty. You can generate, like now with AI, you can generate 1,000 images in a minute if you want. I can if I lose control of one, I can just generate another one. So I think NFTs have lost their value to a degree there. But
yeah.
once you can start using it as for something else, like as let's say a currency or something, or a form of trade in a game or something like that, it might be good. But
Well,
Again,
hold on. Let me also bring that up too. Like, yeah, okay, they've lost value on the market when it comes to freaking cryptocurrency, but you still have to understand that it is yours. Okay. Um,
NFTs have never had any sort of real usefulness, and
all right.
that's
Yeah. Other, well,
in
other other than you proving that this is yours.
well, here's the thing. This is where I think this technology is going. Is when we can use that NFT principle on commodities and resources. When we can track how many resources they are, where they are, who they belong to, then we can start to actually fairly allocate resources. And I think that could be a potentially good use case for it in the real world.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
also it's how
great.
you use it.
Yeah. Again, Mr. Robert, with all due respect, I sometimes wonder.
He's frozen up. See, that's what happens when you start shit talking.
I sometimes wonder if Mr. Roberts he's an extreme communist.
I'm
Well,
censoring him
Because,
in real time.
he's using that remote viewing to freaking screw up your audio and
Denial of service.
like that's what I was saying before you came on here. I was like, we're going to try to keep this to tech. We usually do that unless Mr. Robot's here. When Mr. Robot's here, that's all thrown down freaking.
We'll get to the metaphysical soon, but
Well, you've already covered.
I just want to plug quickly. Me and a bunch of guys on Element, we're looking to design a blockchain-based voting application, which can be used alongside regular elections, or if you want to do like local governance or anything like that. We want to create a blockchain-based application where anyone can check anyone else's vote if they get given the private ID, or you can audit the entire system to verify publicly where your votes went. So you don't have to trust anyone. It's a trustless service, and it also employs zero knowledge proofs like they use in Zcash or Pirate Chain and stuff like that. So your personal information remains private through the whole time. And if anyone would like to join in, you can go on element.io, download the chat, and you can find us under hashtag vote project.
That's pretty cool. Now, we have covered NFTs. Now, I was we covered it pretty good right there. But what I was wanting to get into, but I don't know if we really need to, is user generated content when it comes to this virtual um, virtual stuff. Now, like
Well, in your principle, if everything's done by artificial intelligence, quote unquote,
no, that was a part
then
of
what's the point of any sort of use? And what's the
don't
point
get
of
fired up.
creativity? What's the point about intuitiveness? What's the point about why?
The-
What's the point about us? Why should we even exist any further?
Well, I'm getting to this whole thing about content. You know,
You're getting it fired up.
yeah,
Roger.
user. This is the part that has to do with user generated content on these in these virtual worlds. Okay, now they usually call it UGC, and what it basically is like you get to go into platforms like VR chat and all that, and you get to create your avatars, the clothes they wear, and stuff of that nature. Okay, you can see that also on Roblox. When you turn around and you play Fortnite, they've got this thing on Fortnite called Fortnite Creative, and Minecraft has been doing this stuff for the longest time, where you can go in and you can do that, and you can actually create. I forgot the name of them, but um, it's not worlds because they've separated from it, but it's your own platform, and you can actually make money off of it. But that's one thing they do. They allow you to go into a lot of these games and set it up to where you can in these VR chat and virtual worlds where you can actually sell user generated content on there and make money or cryptocurrency, however you want to do it. But I was wanting to bring that up, but since we have been on here for like 3 hours now, I'm going to freaking just put that out there and then see what you guys think about that. If you have anything to say, and then call it quits because Mark is just a wild man.
Well, I think it's going to create new forms of income streams for people who want to do, content creation and stuff like that. I think that's good, especially if we tend to go more towards the cryptocurrency side of things. I think we should really consider moving away from fiat to more open, transparent models that that we can verify that they're not going to inflate the currencies. Um, but yeah, other than that, I'll say something else
Well,
at the end. But what do you think about it, Mark?
well, in when you talk about
Hold up, stop for a second because you're stop.
why would I want sorry,
You
uh,
start over because your voice just went dead right at the last right
Well,
in.
I remember back in the old Diablo days, playing Diablo, people used to pay like real money for armor and stuff like. Now you can get custom made ones, Mark. How good is that?
it I say that it still allows some people to be creative without needing such automated systems do to generate this creativeness
I
itself.
do agree.
But
I actually say if the AI went off today, how many people would have lost like a lot of skills just because they've been getting used to using AI for everything? I
indeed.
mean, I've been using it to write a lot of my like hardcore papers and stuff, and if I had to go back to manual right now, geez, it would take so much longer.
Then you are looking at the dumb down of society. Hell, why do you have to think when you can get a machine to think for you? I mean, what's the
Well,
point
yeah,
of education? What's the point of anything?
we're sacrificing skill for efficiency. I can code up apps now that I couldn't do before, but I probably, if you asked me to like manually code from scratch now, it would be very difficult for me. It'd take a long time.
You'd have to
So
relearn all over again because I know with me here recently, I was trying to do some projects for Minds Gaming and Bob Dub and all of them, and I freaking had to learn how to do A frame. And I had literally freaking lost all my memories of all this stuff. I haven't touched code for at least 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean? And within 4 or 5 years, I had completely forgotten how to freaking code. I mean, I had to go in and kind of like catch up on stuff all over again. And then,
The brain is like a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it. And I find I'm remembering less stuff, like rote learning stuff, but I'm learning more contextual stuff. So like, the more I use the AI to help me like brainstorm and create new projects, I'm learning like new forms of information. But if the AI went down and the internet went down, how much of that is actually in my brain? I don't know.
yeah,
But yeah, it's
it's
interesting.
true. Now, when it comes to that, sometimes it's best to, from what I've learned with Blender, how I do Blender, because like most people who learn Blender, they did it off of YouTube tutorials, and that's how I started. And that's just basically a tutorial, and you follow directions. And after a while, everybody on Blender says you need to stop doing it. And my best advice is like use it for that kind of instructional purposes, but after a while, just take a break from it and see what you've actually freaking acquired from the time that you started doing it. You know what I mean? Kind of let your brain work on its own without using.
We get into a situation where people have to learn to be creative. And there's so much reliance on automated systems. You can call them artificial intelligence if you want, but there's so much reliance on automated systems that it's deleting creativeness.
Yeah,
It's
well,
we're
in the
losing a part of it.
in the past, like you had to become a master at a skill to be like highly creative. Like, you know, your Leonardo da Vinci's and people like that. They had to be really good at what they were doing already before they could like create these masterpieces, right? And so it's basically shortening that time. You don't have to get as good at a skill to be creative now. Like I can create entire songs just from a prompt and an idea, which is kind of good in a way because I get to do create like have a creative outlet that I wouldn't have been able to do before, and I can do it much quicker. Like I can pump out a few things in an hour, whereas before it would have taken me months. You know, so it is good in a sense, but I do agree with Roger that you got to take a step back from it and see how much of it you actually can do yourself, and like also learn skills at the same time. Like,
Right.
so
Find out how you can actually use that stuff you learned to create something of your own. You know what I mean? Because if you turn around and all you're doing is like regurgitating what somebody else did, then all you're doing is duplicating something in your version of it. You know what I mean? It's like taking and doing your version of the Mona Lisa. You know what I mean? It's not
mm.
the Mona Lisa, but it's a copy. You know,
Well, to a degree, it is useful to duplicate stuff. Like I know with like coding, for example, I duplicated a lot of already like known projects just to like get my head around it, but you had to like manually learn how to do the coding first.
right?
Now people tend to just rely on the automation generation stuff and not so much on the actual skill building. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think there needs to be like adults actually should step in with kids, especially using this stuff, and like force them to, you know, manually do stuff so they don't get into that habit of like just relying on it all the time. It's like when calculators first came out. Remember, like we just started getting into the habit of just relying on the calculator, and our math skills just went down and down. So yeah, I think it's just like any other new technology. We got to learn how to use it responsibly, especially now that it's so powerful, and that just comes with a bit of experience and wisdom as we go along. I think.
So here's the deal. It's up to you guys later on. Let's come back and maybe discuss social hubs more and some of the stuff about coding and about about this whole AI thing and stuff like that. Like we've just started doing here because I think it'd be something to go back over and talk about, especially when it comes to coding, and the stuff that we've been done because I think that's important. But we're like at 3 hours and 15 minutes, and if we don't end it now, Mark, his head's gonna explode.
I just want to have a final thought for the viewers that are still
Okay.
with us after all this time.
Okay.
Uh, my argument is that all this technology that is so amazing to us right now, we already have within us. And we are actually the most ultimate AI that has ever been created. And it's well known throughout the ages that our greatest thinkers like Nikola Tesla, people like that, could go into virtual reality worlds in a sort of semi dream state where they can actually design things in a three-dimensional space, make it work, and then like save it, come back to it later. So like I've experienced this kind of stuff myself where, either you can do remote viewing, look at things outside of your body, you can go into internal dimensional worlds, there's like telepathy and all sorts of crazy stuff that is within our capacity to use. But if we become reliant on machines to do it for us, like mobile phones, AI, stuff like that, we lose connection with that higher aspect of our own selves. We don't get a manual on how to use our own nervous systems, So it's something that has to be honed over time, and that can only be done through shutting off the machines, shutting off your thinking, and like doing a better meditation and self development every now and then. So I would encourage people to strike a balance between a little bit of metaphysical, spiritual work alongside whatever other technical stuff they want to do.
See, we allow just about anybody up in here, dude. It's just like we let Mr. Robot come in and we're talking about metaphysical and remote viewing, and I'm surprised he hasn't mentioned Atlantis yet. Just saying it. It's
Got to save something for next time.
That's right.
At least I saved it till the end this time. I didn't.
You did good. You did good. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody for listening. I'd like to thank you two for showing up and being a part of this because I think I told Mark before it started it was going to be a good episode. I really had a good feeling about it, and I think it did turn out pretty good. We actually had a serious conversation about 5G, and thank goodness we did that before you came in here because I knew if you showed up, it was
Yeah,
on.
it's probably divine intervention.
Yes. So I figured that you were probably still asleep because you're like about 3 hours in a day, or no,
Yeah,
day and a half ahead of me. So
I just woke up and then I like, oh crap, you guys are on. So just in
yeah.
time.
So next week maybe you can get an alarm clock and be able to.
Not artificial intelligence.
I don't think any type of
framework.
artificial intelligence is going to wake Mr. Robot up.
I am actually designing AI with AI. I'm designing a chatbot right now on Telegram to give me alerts. So I'll make it next time.
Okay. And then we'll come back to a lot of this and we'll have a good conversation. And like I said, thank you guys for showing up. If you guys liked what you heard, please like, subscribe, share, make comments. Please make comments because, like I said in the previous episode, we are fucking losers, dude. We sit around watching the computer waiting for your comments because that's what losers do. We need the approval of all of you guys because we're just pathetic nerds, and we need love. We need love and care and guidance.
Nerds need loving too. So
That's right. So be good and make comments in the comment section. Now the thing of it is I'm gonna take a roll off of what Jaffe says, Jaffe Ryder, and he says just don't be a dick, okay? Just Just don't be a dick. Be nice and take care of each other. And thanks for showing up. And I hope everybody has a good night or day or whatever you're having. So that I'm
Thanks,
gonna
guys. Appreciate it.